Chapter 359. Xiao used the teapot lid to gently stir the tea leaves floating on the surface of the water. His tone was calm. King Ping is naturally suspicious, so we can take advantage of him. King Ping is cautious. If he knows that King Jing and King Jin have been defeated, he'll stake everything on a single throw. You'll have to deal with everything at once. Xiao didn't say much, but Gentleman Sheng could hear his calmness. Since Xiao had spoken, it meant that he already had a plan. He chose to believe him. About the rumors about you killing your brothers and harming your sisters, now that we know who's behind it, we can turn the tables and let the public's opinion shift to someone else. You can also build your image as the ruler of a country, Xiao reminded him. Gentleman Sheng nodded. Although this matter wasn't very serious and was just a rumor, the public's opinion could make or break a person. If he could use this opportunity to clear himself of suspicion, why not? If it was settled before Zhe Wang mobilized his troops, when Zhe Wang invaded, the people would also have a conflicted mentality. When he was arrested, no one would say that he was looking for Zhe Wang as a scapegoat and randomly splashing dirty water on him. After Gentleman Sheng thought it through, he couldn't help but be surprised again. Details determined success or failure. Xiao every move wasn't useless. Every move he made was very delicate. It seemed like the pieces were scattered all over the chessboard, but as long as the last piece was placed, all the pieces would come to life. Your Majesty, I can't guarantee that nothing will go wrong. I can only say that I'll do my best. Xiao looked at him and said slowly. I understand. There's no such thing as an invincible general on the battlefield. If such a meticulous plan can't save Junlan, I'll accept it. Gentleman Sheng smiled and sighed. Xiao didn't say anything. He only ordered Turan and Hualing to do what they should do next. After everything was done, Xiao let Turan and Hualing leave with Gentleman Sheng. Thank you, King of England. If there's anything else, I'll take my leave. Gentleman Sheng said with a smile. Your Majesty, Xiao suddenly said. Gentleman Sheng turned to look at him in confusion. Is there anything that hasn't been resolved? No. Xiao shook his head and said seriously. Your Majesty, don't worry too much. I just hope that you can remember your promise. Gentleman Sheng couldn't help but laugh. A gentleman's promise is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. I won't forget it. Even if I lose, I'll send you to the border of Jiang Kingdom unharmed. However, since Xiao had said so, it proved that this mess could still be cleaned up. Junzi Sheng came with a stomach full of worries, but when he left, the burden on his shoulders was much lighter, and his footsteps were full of vigor. After the group of people left, the entire crowded hall suddenly became empty. Come. Stop. If it's just a compliment, then forget it. Xiao laughed and shook his head. Big Ice Cube, I really think that you're amazing. It turns out that those things were just a prelude. One by one, they became a chain of plans. How can a person be so smart? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but praise him. Listening to you is better than reading books for 10 years. Today she had witnessed a series of plans, which had completely overturned all her previous knowledge. It turned out that the plots in novels really existed and weren't imagined by those authors. However, she didn't mean that Big Ice Cube was insidious. There was no right or wrong in the fight for power. Xiao glanced at her coldly. You can read more and experience more, but it depends on your talent. Chu Qingyan felt like she had been stabbed by an arrow by Big Ice Cube. However, she still had something to ask him, so she didn't care about the belittling in his words. Big Ice Cube, since Prince Jing and Prince Jin have decided to take action in 7 days, why did you bring it forward? Aren't you afraid that Prince Jing and Prince Jin will be suspicious? Xiao looked down at her. I didn't expect that you would be enlightened one day. Ignoring the fire in her eyes, Xiao curved his lips. Didn't you want to leave Junlan and go to Jiang country? If you continue to lose sleep, you'll really become a panda. Chu Qingyan frowned. She had accidentally mentioned the panda to him. But what did Big Ice Cube say have to do with bringing it forward? However, after Big Ice Cube said this, he calmly picked up his teacup and drank tea. Obviously, he didn't want to discuss this issue with her anymore. That proved that his words were the answer. Suddenly, there was a flash of light. Chu Qingyan had an epiphany. Big Ice Cube was saying that he wanted to bring the plan forward to appease her. The sooner they succeeded, the sooner they could leave Junlan. She stole a glance at the calm person and felt a warmth in her heart. Big Ice Cube was taking such a big risk for her. She was slightly moved. But won't this risk be great? She was still worried. There are pros and cons. At least it will bring forward the Four Kings' plans, so they won't have so much time to react. It will also prevent unforeseen events. Moreover, Prince Jing and Prince Jing are both very conceited. If there are no accidents, they won't doubt their own plan, Xiao Su replied. Chu Qingyan nodded. By the time they reacted, the situation was already clear. They had to bite the bullet and do it. If Junlan was passively waiting for the Four Kings to attack before, this time, it was better to say that Junlan was actively waiting for the Four Kings' actions. Big Ice Cube, if the plan goes smoothly and Prince Jing and Prince Jin's forces are taken back, what do you plan to do with Prince Ping and Prince Sei? Zhen Zisheng also asked him this question. She didn't get an answer, but she was still curious. According to the information collected by Hualing, Prince Ping and Prince Sei were the two most difficult to deal with among the Four Kings. Xiao Su rubbed his eyebrows. He felt that this little fellow had a lot of questions, but he didn't answer her like he did Zhen Zisheng. Prince Sei is cunning and suspicious, but he is also timid. Once someone fails, he will probably be overcautious. Moreover, his most doted son is already under the control of the Wind sect. When the time comes, we can just subdue him. Chu Qingyan gasped. Since when did the Big Ice Cube capture someone's family? What's more, he was able to do it so quietly. He was simply too powerful. Everyone has a weakness. As long as you grasp their weakness, you can break them without attacking. Xiao Su looked at her mouth, which was wide enough to stuff an egg in, and added another sentence. Chu Qingyan nodded repeatedly. Big Ice Cube was really an expert in scheming. She couldn't help but admire him. Then what about Prince Ping? Chu Qingyan stopped exclaiming and asked with her head tilted. You're asking too many questions. It's time to eat. Xiao Su stood up and ignored her. Chu Qingyan was depressed. Would it kill him to ask so many questions? It was very ungentlemanly of him to keep her in suspense. Chapter 360. Unfortunately, no matter how she tried to coax information out of him at the dining table, Big Ice Cube remained indifferent to her. In the end, he even said that he didn't talk during the meal, which left her speechless. Her desire to know was quickly extinguished. She comforted herself. In any case, she would find out soon, so why bother asking him? Perhaps it was because Chu Qingyan had stopped bothering him, but Xiao Su wasn't used to it. You're not going to ask? He put down his chopsticks and looked at her. I don't talk during the meal. She harumphed coldly. You don't want to know? He raised his brows. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Chu Qingyan stuffed a big mouthful of rice into her mouth and ignored him. Xiao Su nodded. I didn't intend to tell you anyway. PFFF. Chu Qingyan looked at the table full of rice and suddenly had the urge to go crazy. As for the culprit, he had already stood up and left a sentence. This king is full. Then he left. Chu Qingyan clenched her chopsticks so tightly that they made crunching sounds. Xi Ning was trembling with fear as she asked, Master, are you all right? I'm very good, very good. Chu Qingyan took another big mouthful of rice and couldn't eat anymore. I'm full too. Chu Qingyan put down her bowl and chopsticks and got up to leave. Xi Ning looked at the table full of food and muttered in her heart, Master must be full from anger. However, Xi Ning also felt a little strange at this moment. It seemed that His Highness liked to tease Master recently, and every time, it was Master who was so angry that she stomped her feet. Sigh, there was always someone to defeat someone else. Xi Ning shook her head as she tidied up. In any case, it was fine as long as His Highness and Master got along well. But it would be great if Jinxin could talk more like this. He was always so cold and aloof. And what was she thinking about? She immediately patted her cheeks to wake herself up. At the same time, Cheng Yanluo brought the dishes into Ethereal's room. Let's eat first. She called out to him. She knew that his high fever had already subsided to a normal temperature. There was no movement behind her, so she turned around to look at him after setting the table. However, she saw him looking at her deeply. It was as if he was looking at her, but also as if he was looking at something through her. Ever since they had reunited, she had rarely seen him like this. Cheng Yanluo thought that his high fever had damaged his brain. She walked over and placed her hand on his forehead to check if he was burning up again. But as soon as she stretched out her hand, before she could touch his forehead, he dodged it. Cheng Yanluo was taken aback. The atmosphere instantly turned awkward. Ethereal had only done it subconsciously. Seeing her withdraw her hand with an unnatural expression, she immediately regretted it. Xiaoyan, I'm fine now. Let's eat. He lifted the blanket and got up. Then, he walked to the dining table. Cheng Yanluo had wanted to have a meal with him, but she felt that it was too awkward. She thought about it and decided not to. I've already eaten. Take your time. I'll come and clean up later. She smiled and was about to turn around and leave. Xiaoyan. Ethereal suddenly called out. She stopped in her tracks and turned around to look at him. His head was slightly lowered, so she couldn't see his expression clearly. However, she didn't know why her heart ached. What's the matter? She asked in a low voice. I'm fine. You don't have to take care of me anymore. Thank you. With that, he picked up his chopsticks and started eating. His distant and polite words made her feel as if they had returned to the time when they had first met. He was so polite to everyone, but there was also a sense of distance. Okay, you're welcome. It took her a lot of effort to find her voice again. Then she pushed the door open and left. The person who had been eating calmly just now slowly put down his chopsticks and covered his eyes. I'm sorry, Xiaoyan. If I'm your burden, then I won't restrain you anymore. The man that master will introduce to you will definitely be better than me. Perhaps he won't love you as much as I do, but you won't have to wait for someone in fear anymore. A man who can't promise you or give you a sense of security is better off leaving as soon as possible. If there's someone you like, then you should just marry him. I'm a person who walks on the edge of a knife. I don't deserve your sincere devotion. I'll let you go like I did in the past. Indeed, there's no one in this world who can't be together. However, I'm afraid that I won't be able to meet a good girl like you again. The night darkened. Whose silhouette was more lonely than the night? Cheng Yanluo left the room and quickly walked back to her room. She turned around and closed the door, then pressed her entire body against the door. She was in a daze, as if something had been cut open and dug out. Had she really reached the end this time? Cheng Yanluo stretched out her hand and looked at the marriage line. When she was young, her father had asked a good friend to read her fortune. The fortune said that the road to love would be bumpy, but in the end, it would be blissful. The bumpy road was with him? The blissful road to bliss was with someone else? Her heart was in a mess. She should have heaved a sigh of relief and ended things with him. Why did she feel even more perplexed? Inadvertently, a drop of water fell. She was slightly surprised and her vision gradually blurred. She raised her hand to cover her eyes and slowly squatted down. She suppressed her voice and cried like a child. It was already late at night. When Chu Qingyan passed by Cheng Yanluo's room, she realized that there was no light at all. She couldn't help but feel curious and knocked on the door. No one answered, so she tried to push the door. Unexpectedly, the door opened. However, when she pushed the door open, the candle inside lit up. The light made her a little dazzled. She rubbed her eyes and asked, Sister Yanluo, what are you doing in the room? Why didn't you light the candle? I accidentally fell asleep just now. Cheng Yanluo placed the candle on the table and looked indifferent. Chu Qingyan's sharp ears could hear the hoarseness in her voice, but she wisely chose not to ask. Oh, I see. Have you eaten? I don't want to eat. I want to drink. Little girl, go and get me a few jars of wine. Cheng Yanluo looked at her with a mischievous smile. Chu Qingyan touched her nose. Something was wrong. But a few jars of wine? Her alcohol tolerance was too good. However, seeing that she was in a bad mood, Chu Qingyan didn't argue with her. She turned around and ordered the palace servants to prepare the wine. On the roof, Chu Qingyan gathered her cloak. Fortunately, Big Ice Cube had draped it over her before she left. Otherwise, she would have been frozen stiff tonight. The people in the palace were all discerning. When they heard that she wanted wine, they immediately and attentively prepared a few side dishes. At this moment, she turned to look at the person beside her, who picked up a jar of wine and poured it into her mouth. She was a little worried. Drink slowly. No one is going to snatch it from you. Aren't you drinking? Cheng Yanluo shook the wine jar in front of her. Chu Qingyan shook her head. If Big Ice Cube smells the wine when I go back, I'll probably be scolded. No, she would definitely be scolded. Your Big Ice Cube is like an old mother. Oh yes, you two. It's not good to be too obedient. You'll be eaten alive in the future, Cheng Yanluo said with a smile. She had drunk some wine and didn't feel restrained. However, Chu Qingyan's face stiffened when she heard her words. Chapter 361. What the hell? What was she talking about? Did she know how to chat? Chu Qingyan was a little annoyed as she glared at the person who was drinking happily. However, she quickly realized that something was wrong. Sister Yanluo, are you sad? There seemed to be some suspicious traces of tears at the corners of her eyes. Her eyes reflected the light from the lanterns, and she could vaguely see that they were red. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask in a soft voice. Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but laugh, as if she had heard something funny. I'm not sad. On the contrary, I'm very happy. Happy? Chu Qingyan felt that she didn't seem to be happy at all. Yes, I'm happy that I've finally gotten rid of a future that I can't see. It's a love that doesn't have the present. It's a love that ended without a cause. After she finished speaking, she took a sip of wine. The wine flowed down from the corner of her mouth, glistening under the night light. Chu Qingyan also noticed the tears that flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Chu Qingyan gritted her teeth. She felt a little sad, but she didn't know what had happened between Cheng Yanluo and Ethereal. She could only persuade her. Don't drink too much. It's cold and it's not good for your health. Cheng Yanluo slowly put down the wine jar and wiped her lips with her sleeve. Her red lips, which were already stained with water and were glowing, became even redder after she wiped them with force. They were like roses that bloomed in the night, bright and gorgeous. Her red cheeks were so delicate that they looked like they could be broken by the wind. Against the pitch-black night sky behind her, her fair skin was tinged with rosy red. Any man who saw this scene would be fascinated. Chu Qingyan wanted to take a bite of her lips, as if they were honey peaches. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a celebration. Cheng Yanluo smiled insincerely. She hugged the wine jar, but her expression was ethereal. Chu Qingyan felt for a chicken claw and stuffed it into her mouth. She crunched on it. Oh, then drink more. Enjoy yourself. Since she couldn't persuade her, she would just let her continue drinking. Once she was drunk, she would be able to sleep soundly. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, Cheng Yanluo stopped pouring the wine. She tilted her head and said to Chu Qingyan, "Little girl, don't we always have talents to liven things up when we drink? Give me a performance." This was a classic example of a fire at the city gate bringing disaster to the fish in the moat. Chu Qingyan spat out a bone and spread out her hands. What do you want to hear? As long as it's suitable for the occasion. Cheng Yanluo tapped the edge of the wine jar and said with a smile. She was extremely flirtatious and full of smiles. She was like a beautiful flower, naturally seductive. Chu Qingyan looked at the person in front of her who was leaning on the wine jar and smiling at her. She couldn't help but sigh. What a beautiful woman. What a pity. Okay, let me think about it. Chu Qingyan didn't want a drunk person to mess around, but she still agreed. Sing as you please. If you sing well, I'll reward you, Cheng Yanluo said with a smile. Then I'll sing a song that I used to like very much. Chu Qingyan recalled a television series that she used to be obsessed with. The song in the series had always touched her deeply. She hummed softly. Don't let me be afraid to think about the silent past and the regret of trying to collect it. I don't want to be brave now. I don't want to be too strong. I want to love its old and worn appearance. The moment Chu Qingyan opened her mouth, Cheng Yanluo felt that something was amiss. The lyrics sounded a little sad. She wanted to interrupt her and change the song, but she didn't say anything. I feel too lonely. I'm in a place where you're not. Although the sky is blue, my heart is cold. I'm too lonely. You're somewhere else. Happiness isn't as simple as it seems. The song sounded a little sad. Chu Qingyan sang it softly a few times. When she turned her head to look at the person beside her, she realized that she had buried her head in her arms. Her shoulders seemed to be trembling. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that she had chosen the wrong song. Sister Yanluo, I think that this song suits the situation. I was wrong. I'll change it for you. Don't cry. After a while, the person lifted her head and stared at her with watery eyes. Who said that? Sand got into my eyes. Okay. Sand got into your eyes. Let me blow on it for you. Chu Qingyan pretended to help her, but she pushed her away. Forget it. Lend me your shoulder. I'm tired. Chung Yanluo leaned her head on her shoulder in a domineering manner. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. Did drunk people like to lie? Were they prideful and domineering? After a while, she heard her even breathing. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. What was going on? One was drowning her sorrows in alcohol, while the other was probably having a hard time sleeping. Speaking of the devil, he arrived. Ethereal appeared on the rooftop, his body cold and frosty. Why are you here? Chu Qingyan lifted her head and looked at him in surprise. I heard from Xining that you were admiring the moon on the rooftop, so I came up to take a look. Ethereal's gaze landed on Chung Yanluo. There was a hint of pity in his eyes. I'll return the person drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Chu Qingyan pointed at the person on her shoulder. Ethereal nodded. Without another word, he reached out and scooped her up. Then he quickly disappeared from the rooftop. Chu Qingyan looked at the empty rooftop and smiled. Sigh, I'm the only one left now. It's a lonely cold night. Should I have some wine to warm myself up? She muttered to herself. She didn't really intend to drink. She didn't want to wake up with a splitting headache tomorrow. Unfortunately, someone took her words seriously. You want to drink? A cold voice sounded beside her ear. Chu Qingyan was startled. She stiffened her neck and turned to look. Wasn't that person in a black brocade robe Big Ice Cube? I was just saying. Chu Qingyan immediately raised her hands in surrender. Xiao Su snorted coldly, but didn't pursue the matter. Instead of sleeping in the middle of the night, you're wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. Very good, very good. Chu Qingyan shrank her neck when she heard the word very good twice in a row. I'm keeping someone company. Xiao Su didn't want to hear her explanation. He looked at her coldly. Aren't you going to get up? Are you going to sit here all night? Big Ice Cube was so fierce tonight. Chu Qingyan's eyes crinkled. She looked embarrassed. I'm numb from the cold. Xiao Su's eyes twitched. Without hesitation, he bent down and scooped her up. Hold on tight. Okay. Chu Qingyan obediently hugged his neck and closed her eyes. She could only hear the cold wind blowing in her ears. After a moment of dizziness, she landed on the ground. She thought that Big Ice Cube would put her down, but she never thought that he would directly carry her into her room. Did you forget what this king said to you? He placed her on the bed and stood with his hands behind his back. Chu Qingyan consciously pulled the blanket over herself. You're not allowed to go out in the middle of the night. This king thought you forgot. Xiao Su's voice carried a trace of mockery. Chu Qingyan knew that she was in the wrong, so she reached out to tug at his sleeve. I was wrong. There won't be a next time. You still want a next time? His threatening tone was heavy. She immediately shook her head. No. Sleep. Xiao Su coldly ordered. Chu Qingyan shrank back. You're not going to tell me stories? Not today. Stingy. Chu Qingyan muttered in her heart. Chapter 362. Xiao Su watched her close her eyes before he turned around and left, closing the door behind him. He did not have time to accompany the little girl tonight. He had to pay close attention to the movements of the vassals in Junlan. Gentleman Sheng ordered the sacrificial ceremony to be brought forward. Although there were some objections among the officials, they could only carry out the order since the emperor had spoken. Once Gentleman Sheng gave the order, the vassals began to move. Prince Jing and Prince Jin discussed throughout the night. Second brother, what do you think of this matter? Prince Jin asked straightforwardly as soon as he arrived at the meeting place. Prince Jing stroked his beard with a disapproving expression. According to the spies, the astrology bureau divined that there will be heavy rain in 7 days. It's not auspicious, so the sacrificial ceremony has been brought forward to 3 days later. You don't have to make a fuss. Prince Jin thought about it, and felt that his second brother was right. He nodded and said, "Since you've already found out, I'm relieved. So, shall we bring forward the assassination plan?" "Of course. Only the time has changed, but everything else is the same. We can move forward too," Prince Jing said with a smile. "The new emperor has just taken over the court. How can he have extra energy to guard against us? Don't worry, third brother. Once we take over the country, we'll share the glory of this golden age." Prince Jin smiled slyly. "I'm relieved to hear that, second brother. When we reach the capital, I'm afraid that fourth brother and fifth brother won't even have time to react. When we take over the capital, we'll join forces and destroy them. Then we'll have nothing to worry about. Third brother, you're right. Come, let's toast to our bright future." Prince Jing raised his wine cup and laughed heartily. Prince Jin raised his cup. All right. For the sake of the plan in 3 days, the two of them did not drink too much. After discussing the details, the two of them parted ways. After sending off Prince Jing's carriage, Prince Jin planned to return to his residence to rest. Suddenly, someone came to visit him. He did not want to pay attention to it, but the attendant said that it was Lord Li. Prince Jin thought about it and summoned him. Li Da was his trusted official. Something important must have happened for him to visit him so late at night. Li Da rushed in. As soon as he saw Prince Jin, he immediately said, "Lord, this humble subject has received a shocking piece of news." After saying that, he whispered into Prince Jin's ear. Hearing this, Prince Jin was shocked. "Is that true? This humble subject has already confirmed it, and the culprit has been caught. Lord, what do you think we should do?" Li Da couldn't make up his mind. The moment he stepped into the house today, he received this news. Prince Jing was actually not His Majesty Ming Xian's biological child. He was actually born from concubine Xiao Shu's illicit affair with another man. This was a huge matter because their lord was currently working with Prince Jing. That's good. This king didn't want to cooperate with him, so as to avoid being bitten by him. Now this news has given this king a very good reason to completely withdraw his troops. Ha ha ha. The heavens are helping me. Prince Jin laughed heartily. He had long had enough of his second son's arrogant personality. He had originally planned to secretly deal with him after seizing the throne, but now that he had evidence in his hands, even if he killed him, when the time came, he would be able to take out the evidence, and it would be reasonable. Hence, Prince Jin immediately instructed Li Da in a low voice. After hearing this, Li Da praised repeatedly, "Lord, this is a good plan. Not only can you get rid of Prince Jing, but you can also take all of his troops under your command. This is like adding wings to a tiger." Prince Jin smiled proudly. "My second son has always been superior to this king. Now this king will let him have a taste of being stepped on." Li Da agreed. "How can Prince Jing compare to you, Lord? Go do as I say." Yes. The night was dark and the wind was strong. It was the perfect time to kill and rob. Outside a hidden courtyard in Junlin's capital, Turin led dozens of people into it in the dark. At this moment, the men in black inside were sleeping soundly. No one had expected an assassination attempt to occur so suddenly. The other party was not on guard, and they were quickly dealt with one by one. Change into their clothes. Turin looked at the corpses on the ground. His expression did not change as he immediately gave the order. These people were the assassins that Prince Jin and Prince Jing had arranged to assassinate Gentleman Sheng in 3 days. Yes. Soon, the courtyard was cleaned up. No one would be able to tell that there had been a cruel battle here just now. Not long after, a subordinate reported with a letter. "This is a secret letter from Prince Jin." Turin took it and glanced at it. Master is right. Prince Jin has brought forward the assassination time. We'll beat him at his own game. Send this message to Master. Yes, Master. Xiao Lai accepted the order and retreated. 3 days later, Gentleman Sheng went to Tianlan Temple to offer sacrifices, accompanied by hundreds of officials. When the ceremony was halfway through, the assassins in black suddenly appeared and took Gentleman Sheng to the palace. Gentleman Sheng sealed the palace and did not allow anyone to enter. King Jin had used his identity as King Jing to threaten King Jing in a town that he was unwilling to leave. When King Jing retaliated, King Jin had surrounded King Jing with the troops that he had arranged beforehand and killed him. After Prince Jing's death, Prince Jin took his military order and planned to command Prince Jing's 3 armies. Unfortunately, he was killed in his room by Hualing before he could hold the order. Hualing glanced at Prince Jin on the ground and said to the people behind him, "Spread the news that Prince Jing was killed by Prince Jin." In order to take revenge, Prince Jing's remaining forces sneaked into Prince Jin's room and killed him. "Yes, master." Xiao Lai accepted the order. Hualing looked at the 2 military orders in his hand and smiled mysteriously. This happened on the day Gentleman Sheng was kidnapped. Therefore, Hualing sent people to block the news about Prince Jing and Prince Jin. The matter was quickly covered up. The outside world trembled in fear because the new emperor was kidnapped. Meetings were held one after another, trying to rescue the new emperor before he was hurt. But strangely, the assassins did not do anything else after taking Gentleman Sheng into the palace. However, if anyone wanted to sneak into the palace, they would be caught and thrown out. The civil and military officials were even more afraid of this group of assassins. They did not dare to act rashly. While everyone was busy outside, the side chamber was leisurely. Gentleman Sheng was drinking tea and eating desserts. His expression was relaxed as he lamented, "We haven't been so free in a long time." Chu Qingyan was lying on the table when she heard him say this. She couldn't help but glance at him. This emperor was indeed very busy. It was more relaxing to be an unemployed person. Xiao Su looked at Gentleman Sheng coldly. "Does your majesty think you're free just because you're like this? What does the King of England think?" Gentleman Sheng hesitated and couldn't help but ask. "Isn't this the best time to distinguish between the loyal officials and the traitorous ones?" Xiao Su said indifferently. Gentleman Sheng finally reacted and patted his head. "The King of England is right. How can we miss this opportunity?" Chu Qingyan felt that Gentleman Sheng had been tormented by state affairs until he became stupid. At this time, Turin walked in quickly. Chapter 363. What's the matter? Xiao Su asked as soon as Turin entered the room. Turin bowed to Junzi Sheng before turning to his master. Hualing has successfully taken down King Jing and King Jin's armies. Their forces are now gathered in Yi City, which is not far from the capital. Hearing this, Gentleman Sheng clapped his hands and laughed. "That's great. 2 of our biggest problems have been dealt with. King Ying's foresight is truly divine." Xiao Su ignored his compliment. "Your Majesty, let the 2 armies stand still for now. Find a general you can trust to integrate them into your own army." Junzi Sheng understood what he meant. Now that the 2 armies were mixed together, there were many people who were dissatisfied or wantonly trying to sow discord. At this moment, other than appeasing them, Junzi Sheng also had to make them submit willingly. Junzi Sheng thought for a moment and ordered Lao Bai to do the job. Within 2 days, Xiao Su dealt with all the messengers who came and went. Xiao Su's decisiveness won Junzi Sheng's admiration. Back then, Junzi Sheng was just standing on one side of the battlefield and could only see the results of Xiao Su's orders. Now that he was in the same situation, he realized that Xiao Su was a man of strategy. He was so calm that he had the power to decide life and death. "King of England, if it weren't for you, I would have become a prisoner by now." Junzi Sheng sighed. His royal uncles were all cunning old foxes. He was no match for them at all. "Your Majesty, it's too early to be happy. Your final opponent is really coming." As soon as Xiao Su finished speaking, Turin entered the hall again. "Master, King Zhe has brought his army to Fu City in the name of protecting the emperor," Turin reported. "Fu City?" Junzi Sheng was shocked. "Doesn't that mean they've reached the capital?" Turin nodded. "How many soldiers does King Zhe have with him?" Xiao Su was very calm. There was no sign of panic. 10,000 cavalry and 70,000 infantry, Turin replied. Xiao Su nodded and then turned to say to Jun Zixing, "Your Majesty can send an official representing your status to negotiate with Zhe Wang and use the chips in your hands to make a deal with him." "That's right. Prince Zhe's favored son is in our hands. Moreover, Prince Zhe dared to send troops because he was relying on the name of protecting the emperor. If we were fine and Prince Jin and Prince Jing had already fallen from power, he probably wouldn't have the guts to go against the capital. Immediately, Gentleman Sheng calmed down. He had 3 times as many soldiers as Zhe King, including the hundreds of thousands of soldiers he had subdued. Even if King Zhe doesn't agree, our men are more than enough to beat him back. Gentleman Sheng was a little carried away. Xiao shook his head. Let's not touch Prince Jing and Prince Jin's men for now. Before they've completely surrendered, they're useless. Instead of being of any use, he was worried that they would be instigated. It's best to persuade Prince Zhe to surrender. Gentleman Sheng was stunned. He felt that Xiao words made sense, so he sent someone to deal with this matter. However, before that he said with some hesitation, King of England, can I borrow an expert negotiator from you? The people I have aren't outstanding enough. I'm afraid they'll mess things up. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head when she heard this. She really didn't know how this Gentleman Sheng became an emperor. He didn't have anyone, and his ability was lacking. Fortunately, this time he met her big ice cube. Otherwise, with his ability, the entire Junlan would have been divided up. Turin arranged someone for him. Xiao didn't care about this small matter and assigned someone to him. Only then did Gentleman Sheng heave a sigh of relief. Night fell. The side hall was still brightly lit, as if it was daytime. Gentleman Sheng had already gone back to rest. Chu Qingyan walked in with a bowl of soup. Big ice cube, it's very late. Drink something to fill your stomach. She handed the bowl to him. Xiao took it and glanced at her. In the future, it's so late. You don't have to do these things. Just instruct the servants to do it. She knew that the big ice cube was concerned about her. She shrugged and smiled nonchalantly. Anyway, you're all busy. I don't have much to do. I can still help if it's within my ability. When Xiao heard this, he handed the secret letter in his hand to her. Then read this letter for me. Chu Qingyan was speechless at the way he gave her orders so easily. However, she still took it and read it without much thought. At noon, King Ping led his troops and camped in Mount Pan 30 miles away. He's already suspicious of the rescue mission. When she read this, Chu Qingyan's attention was immediately drawn. She murmured, Big Ice Cube, if King Ping finds out that all this is fake, will he do something desperate? Xiao put down the bowl and shook his head. No, King Ping is cautious and cherishes his reputation. He won't be impulsive and take the risk to send his troops. Then what will he do? After all, 2 out of the 4 kings have already been killed. Chu Qingyan was very curious. This situation seemed to be very advantageous to them. But she felt that they shouldn't let their guard down. If you were King Ping, what would you do? Xiao threw the question back at her. Chu Qingyan was stunned. If she were King Ping, what would she do? King Jing and King Jin suddenly went missing. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. The new emperor was held hostage. Those thieves didn't make any demands. Everything was dead silent. Now only King Zhe and he had besieged the capital city. However, King Zhe didn't make any moves. This made him feel even more uneasy. If I were King Ping, I'd choose to join forces with King Zhe. King Jing and King Jin suddenly went missing. It's very likely that they've met with mishap. 120,000 soldiers aren't enough to fill the gaps between the capital city's teeth. Therefore, joining forces might be the most appropriate choice for now. Chu Qingyan focused on putting herself in King Ping's shoes. She thought about his identity and his way of doing things and came to this conclusion. Chu Qingyan, who was seriously thinking, did not notice that Xiao's gaze on her had a hint of admiration. She was indeed his woman to be able to think of this. But if that's the case, won't King Zhe join forces with King Ping? If that was the case, Chu Qingyan was worried. At this time, the timing is critical, Xiao said profoundly. Chu Qingyan didn't understand what he meant, but she soon understood. In the middle of the night, Zhen Zisheng suddenly appeared at the entrance of the side hall. His face was slightly red and he looked very excited. Chu Qingyan looked at Zhen Zisheng, who was striding over. If his identity wasn't taken into consideration, he was indeed a very scholarly and handsome man. It was hard to associate him with the monarch of a country. However, after interacting with him for the past few days, this person wasn't without any redeeming qualities. At least when he gave orders, he didn't hesitate at all. He vividly displayed the cold and emotionless side of a monarch. King of England, King Zhe has surrendered. Zhen Zisheng exclaimed happily before he even reached the hall. Chu Qingyan widened her eyes and looked at the person beside her. No wonder Yu Daibing said that the timing was critical. If King Zhe had already surrendered, then whatever King Ping wanted to do next would be within their control. Chapter 364. Xiao nodded calmly. Gentleman Sheng was stunned for a moment. His joy was quickly frozen. He smiled embarrassedly. It seemed that he already knew. Or rather, everything was already under his control. Chu Qingyan snickered. Her big ice cube was so smart and powerful that it blinded Gentleman Sheng's eyes. He had already seen Xiao Su's indifference, so Gentleman Sheng no longer hesitated. For the sake of the next plan, he did not put down his pride like he did a few days ago. Instead, he asked directly, "What should we do next?" King Ping is different from the other 3 imperial uncles. He is not easy to deal with. Your Majesty, you don't have to worry about this. Soon, King Ping will take action when he sees that the situation is not good. At that time, we just have to act according to the circumstances. Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. He did not get carried away by the fact that he had already recovered 3/4 of his troops. Instead, he became more cautious and his expression became colder. Jun Zixing originally wanted to ask a few more questions. But because Xiao Su didn't seem to want to talk about it, Jun Zixing gave up. During this period of time, she had already seen his remarkable abilities, so there was no need for her to be worried or suspicious. Okay, we will wait for the King of England to give the order. After saying this, Gentleman Sheng was ready to leave. Ever since Xiao Su reminded him to pay attention to the movements of the civil and military officials, he asked his trusted aides to pay close attention. As expected, he found that many officials were secretly colluding with the 4 kings. He listened to Xiao Su's suggestion and suppressed the anger in his heart. He first monitored these people. After the rebellion of the 4 kings was over, he would catch all of them in one fell swoop. This way, he would have the power to deter them. Not only that, Xiao Su also suggested that he could use this opportunity to recruit some core officials to fill the vacancies of these officials when the time came, so that the entire imperial court would not be suddenly empty. Therefore, during this period of time, he did not dare to let his guard down. He knew that this was a real challenge for him since he ascended the throne. He felt the surging excitement and eagerness to try. It could be said that if he succeeded this time, it would be a reform of the imperial court and the entire Junlan state. It would be a great change of blood. For him, it would be a new beginning. But the moment he left the side hall, he couldn't help but turn back and look at the dark palace. If it weren't for the fact that Xiao Su was from Sichuan, he would definitely have poached him to Junlan. However, as soon as this thought appeared in his mind, he shook his head and rejected it. Such a person was too strong, and he probably wouldn't be able to suppress him. After Jun Zixing left, Chu Qingyan walked to Xiao Su. She tilted her head and asked in confusion, "Why didn't you tell Jun Zixing about your next plan?" Hearing this, Xiao Su put down the letter in his hand and crossed his hands on the table. The candlelight cast a dim yellow halo on his body, but it made his face a little hazy, and his expression couldn't be seen clearly. His voice was a little indifferent and cold, but not too cold. King Ping is ruthless and scheming, but in the eyes of the people of Junlan State, he is a gentle and virtuous king. Do you know why? Because he is good at disguising? In her eyes, sanctimonious people don't reveal their true colors because they're too good at pretending. However, Xiao Su shook his head, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. His smile was very faint. It's not just that. It should be said that his reach is very long. He has spies all over Junlan State, so whatever kind of reputation he wants, he only needs to give an order, and someone will spread it for him. Moreover, he has done so many dirty things. There is no wall in the world that doesn't have a crack, but he hid them all. This proves that he has reached the point where he can cover the sky with one hand. It's only because he cherishes his reputation that he wants to take the throne in the name of being virtuous. Otherwise, with his ability, Jun Zixing wouldn't be his opponent at all. Chu Qingyan was very surprised after hearing this. What he meant was that King Ping's men were hiding around Jun Zixing, so every time Big Ice Cube took a step forward, he would delay telling Jun Zixing the next step to prevent King Ping's spies around Jun Zixing. How did Big Ice Cube know everything? Moreover, she was even more surprised that Big Ice Cube was willing to explain so much to her. The person who usually didn't talk much was no longer so stingy with his words. As if reading her mind, Xiao Su said disapprovingly, "It's just ordinary reasoning ability. Plus I've seen so much, so I'm used to it. At the same time, it's also to let you learn more." Big Ice Cube, should I take in a few more subordinates? Then I'll have my own manpower? Chu Qingyan's eyes were shining. When the time came, she could also send them to various places to help her collect information. Xiao Su couldn't help but hold his forehead. This little girl seemed to be concerned about the wrong thing. The news of King Zhe being subdued was suppressed. King Ping didn't receive any news about it. After a day, King Ping couldn't hold it in anymore. He sent a letter to King Zhe, wanting to discuss cooperation. Currently, there were only two paths in front of King Zhe. One was to meet force with force, and the other was to form an alliance. Actually, there was another option, which was to return to his fief. However, if Jun Zixing regained control of the three kings' military forces and took back his fief, then it would be his turn. No matter how he went back and forth, it would be a dead end. However, he wouldn't choose to meet force with force. Firstly, he was outnumbered. Secondly, it wouldn't be proper for him to obtain the throne this way. It wouldn't be in line with his title as the virtuous king. 2 days later, King Ping arrived at the Sanli Pavilion as promised. He only brought 100 light cavalry to show King Zhe's sincerity. He knew his brother well. Although he was cautious and timid, he wasn't afraid that his brother would plot against him. If something happened to him, then his brother would be even more isolated and helpless. If he didn't show up personally, his army wouldn't listen to anyone else's orders. Therefore, it was better to have one more ally than one more enemy. King Ping sat in the Sanli Pavilion and waited for half a cup of tea's time. Then he heard a series of footsteps approaching from afar. He raised his eyebrows and turned around. He was about to welcome them with a smile when he saw who it was. "Your Majesty?" His voice was filled with disbelief and fear. "Fifth Imperial Uncle, how have you been?" Jun Zixing smiled brightly as if the person in front of him wasn't a traitor, but an elder he respected. King Zhe, who was standing beside Jun Zixing, had a complicated expression. "Fifth Imperial brother, we've all lost. We've all lost to this brat. The person we've always looked down on turned around and bit us in the end. He did it quietly and with superb methods that caught us off guard. No, I didn't lose. You're the ones who lost." With his shrewdness, he connected the dots as soon as he saw Jun Zixing. King Ping's expression suddenly turned ferocious. He no longer looked gentle and humble. Chapter 365. Fifth Imperial Uncle. Are you still going to put up a final struggle? Jun Zixing looked at King Ping. This person whom he had respected since he was young was now standing in front of him with a ferocious expression. The collapse of his faith was far more serious than the disappointment he felt at that moment. King Ping sneered and waved his hand to give the order. 100 light cavalry soldiers surrounded him. The atmosphere suddenly turned tense and a battle could break out at any moment. Jun Zixing, I won't admit defeat so easily. As soon as King Ping finished speaking, his subordinates immediately rushed toward Jun Zixing. Jun Zixing did not expect him to still want to fight back at this point. It was like throwing an egg against a rock. Jun Zixing took 2 steps back. The soldiers hiding in the dark immediately showed themselves and surrounded King Ping and his men. Even if King Ping's men were powerful and could fight against 10 people at once, they could not stop so many people from taking turns to fight. King Ping's men fell one by one. His battle robe was also stained with blood. He seemed to have gone berserk. The sword in his hand was like a scythe, harvesting lives. Soon, he killed his way out of the encirclement. However, he did not run away. Instead, he approached Jun Zixing step by step. Jun Zixing, Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 people in front of him were immediately killed. He turned around and walked toward Jun Zixing, killing the 3 guards in front of Jun Zixing one after another. Although King Ping had a reputation for being a virtuous and elegant man, his martial arts were taught by the most famous swordsman in Junlan. No one in the royal family could be his opponent. In addition, he had lost his mind and was probably invincible. Gentleman Sheng's expression froze. He drew his sword and wanted to fight him. However, at that moment, Turin appeared in front of him and said to Jun Zixing, "My master has sent his subordinates to protect your majesty. Please step back." Jun Zixing retracted his sword. After Turin finished speaking, he immediately blocked King Ping with his sword. King Ping's martial arts were powerful. However, Turin was from the fierce cavalry and was the leader of the secret guards. How could ordinary people compete with his martial arts? King Ping's men were all killed. Only King Ping was left. Therefore, when the 2 of them fought, everyone held their breaths and waited. After the 45th exchange, King Ping spat out a mouthful of blood. He knelt on the ground and supported himself with his sword. At that moment, the guards immediately surrounded him to prevent him from hurting anyone else. He looked up and looked at Turin in disbelief. "You're not from Junlan?" "That's right. I don't belong to Junlan." The earth spirit did not deny it. King Ping was surprised once again. "You're from Xiao cavalry." Earth spirit's calm expression changed slightly, but he quickly looked at King Ping calmly. "I heard that King Ping is knowledgeable and knowledgeable. Now that I've met you today, you're indeed right." Jun Zixing Zixing. Jun Zixing Zixing. Jun Zixing. At this moment, King Ping, who had had enough of laughing, looked at Jun Zixing and said slowly, "I was wondering how you could come up with such a meticulous plan with your ability. It was so well connected that you took into account everyone's personality and schemes. However, if it's that person, then everything makes sense now. I didn't expect you to have such a capable helper. That person does have the ability to strike fear in people." Jun Zixing pursed his lips. "But you still lost in the end." "Yes, I lost. But I didn't lose to you. I lost to him." King Ping chuckled. He clenched his fingers and held the hilt of his sword to prevent it from slipping. He knew that he was at the end of his rope. He raised his head slightly and met Jun Zixing's gaze. He laughed self-deprecatingly. "Zixing, do you know that if your father didn't take advantage of the situation back then, I would be the one sitting on the throne now? Unfortunately, he was too cunning. He bribed my father's men to change the imperial edict." Jun Zixing's eyes darkened. But for so many years, he didn't enjoy a single day of peace after sitting on that throne. He spent his days busy and anxious. Jun Zixing smiled. King Ping smiled complacently. "That's because he deserves it. All these years, I haven't stopped causing trouble for him. I ordered people to cut corners when the West River burst its banks. I ordered people to steal the disaster relief funds in Deer City. I ordered people to spread the rumors about your father. I was the one who instigated the unrest in the 4 Kings all these years. It's impossible for him to live in peace." Jun Zixing clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "King Ping, why don't you think about the people of Junlan? Those are all innocent people." Mockery flashed across King Ping's face. "Think about it. If it wasn't for your father, I would be the one in charge of Junlan now." Jun Zixing closed his eyes, then opened them and said to him, "This is all your one-sided story. I don't believe that my father would do such a thing. If you have anything else to say, save it for the trial." "Ha, a warrior can be killed but not humiliated. Since I lost to you today, I have no intention of leaving this place alive." As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled out the sword from the ground and slid it across his neck without any hesitation. Blood spurted out, and his eyes rolled back. He could no longer hold the hilt of the sword and fell to the ground. I didn't lose. His last glance landed in the direction of the palace. If it wasn't for Xiao Su's intervention and the help of Xiao cavalry, this country would have been his sooner or later. As long as his army entered the capital, King Jing, King Jin, and King Zhe wouldn't be his match at all. Jun Zixing was already a mere figurehead. But He calculated everything, but he didn't expect Jun Zixing to seek Xiao out. Therefore he didn't lose. It was just that life was unfair and his luck wasn't on his side. Jun Zixing heard King Ping's words as soon as he turned around. He didn't turn back. When he heard the sound of a blade piercing into flesh with his eyes closed, his eyebrows trembled slightly and finally calmed down. Your Majesty, this king has listened to your words and brought old Five here. When will you let this king meet with my son? Wang didn't look at the person lying in the pool of blood. Instead, he asked Ji Junqing nervously. Fourth Imperial Uncle, you'll be able to see the heir when you return to the capital. Jun Zixing suddenly felt a little tired. He waved his hand and ordered someone to take King Zhe away. King Zhe wanted to say more, but when he saw Jun Zixing's dark expression, he shut his mouth and left with the guard with a sigh. Clean up King Ping's body and return to the capital. Jun Zixing ordered, but his voice was a little hoarse. Everything was clearly over. Everyone had either been executed or imprisoned, but why did his heart feel heavier and heavier? He thought that he would feel relieved after solving Junlan's crisis, but he couldn't feel happy at all. This was probably the biggest internal strife Junlan had ever had. He laughed at himself and sighed. Chapter 366. They returned to the court. As soon as Jun Zixing returned to the palace, he began to stir up trouble. The moment he appeared, all the officials were shocked. When they heard that Prince Jing and Prince Jin had rebelled and both had died, Prince Zhe had been arrested for insubordination, and Prince Ping had committed suicide out of fear of punishment, the entire situation changed in an instant. Before anyone could react, Jun Zixing issued imperial edicts one after another. All the civil and military officials in the court who had colluded with the four princes were exterminated, and their families confiscated. The light punishment was banishment to the borders. The entire dynasty was in a state of panic. However, after the heavy punishment, Jun Zixing chose to let bygones be bygones. Many officials were instantly moved to tears of gratitude. The people also began to spread rumors that Jun Zixing was a wise and benevolent ruler. At this time, there were also rumors that he was a good ruler who knew how to appoint people, and was a rare good emperor. This was because he had promoted many officials during this period, and had also dug up many virtuous and elegant scholars to fill the vacancies. For the first time, the entire Junlan dynasty was peaceful. When Chu Qingyan heard the rumors that Hualing had gathered from the people, she pursed her lips. This Jun Zixing's methods were quite good. He gave a slap and rewarded a sweet date. Which of the officials wouldn't be moved? They wished they could cut open their hearts for him to see. However, she had to admit that Jun Zixing had improved a lot during this period of time compared to before. He was also becoming more tactful in handling matters. She heard that although the Junlan Empire was still a little unstable, at least it was slowly getting on the right track. She tilted her head and looked at the person sitting in the hall reading a book. She touched her chin and suddenly said, "Big Ice Cube, I realize that if you don't want to be Lord, there's another position that suits you very well." Oh. Xiao looked away from the book and looked at her with some interest. "Tell me about it." "Educating people," Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Xiao ignored her. "I'm not interested." Chu Qingyan's interest was piqued. She ran in front of Jiang Yi and placed her hands on the table. She rested her chin on top of it and continued, "The education I'm talking about is not as simple as teaching people how to read and write. The disciples we're taking in are not ordinary people. They're all famous people from all over the world. As for you, you're teaching them how to survive in this world. You're teaching them how to deal with deception and deceit. You're teaching them how to become invincible." Xiao found it funny. The world is chaotic enough, and you want these people to cause more trouble? Chu Qingyan pondered for a moment and felt that Big Ice Cube was right. It seemed like she was overthinking things. However, Chu Qingyan was in high spirits again. She took away the eyesore book in his hand, then clenched her little fist and extended it in front of him. She said in a serious and official tone, "Then what does His Royal Highness have to say about helping Junlan achieve a comprehensive victory this time?" Xiao looked at the little fist in front of him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. "If you're very free, you can go out first. Take 10 steps forward, then turn left for 20 steps. Do what? Chu Qingyan was a little confused by his unscripted behavior. Practice boxing with your subordinates. Xiao Su leaned back in his chair and took the book she had taken away. He leisurely flipped the page to the paragraph he had just read. Chu Qingyan retracted her little fist and shook her head. She muttered to herself, "This person is too boring. He doesn't even know how to joke. In the future, I'll be bored to death by him. I'd better go play with Huoling and the others." With that said, Chu Qingyan prepared to leave the hall to see the others. But when Xiao Su heard her muttering to herself, his entire face froze. It had only been a few months, and she was already disdainful of him. He didn't know whether to say that her childish words carried no harm, or that she was extremely daring. "Come back." She had already walked to the door, but his cold voice called her back. But Chu Qingyan, who was familiar with his temper, wasn't shocked by his aura at all. Or rather, she was already immune to it. She fearlessly lay back in her original position and asked with a fearless expression, "Have you already figured out how to answer my question?" Xiao Su looked at her deeply, ignoring the sparkling anticipation in her eyes. Instead, he bent his knuckles and tapped the table beside him. "Lin 50 pieces. What was going on? Why did the style change from an interview to a punishment all of a sudden?" "I know how to write. Recently, I've almost become a professional calligrapher. Please let me go." Chu Qingyan scrunched up her face as she bitterly begged for mercy. "Your words are too ugly, keep practicing." Xiao Su ignored her pitiful appearance and said without a change in his tone, "You can't be like this." Chu Qingyan looked at the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone in front of her and was about to go crazy. There's no room for discussion. Seeing her stomp her feet, Xiao Su felt much better. Chu Qingyan looked at the person whose expression didn't change. She could only scratch her head and pick up the brush to write. Who told her to be at the bottom of the food chain? After she wrote down a few words, she looked left and right. It was clearly quite good. After being spurred on by the large ice cube, it was already several times better than the dog crawling from before. However, she didn't dare argue with him, otherwise the punishment wouldn't be this little. At this time Huoling came in. When he saw the little princess with the bitter face of the Lin character, he looked away without any surprise and said to his master, "Master, everything has been prepared. We can set off at any time." Xiao Su nodded. "That's right, Master. Her Majesty Junlan is holding a celebration banquet tonight, and has invited us to go together." Huoling mentioned this matter. Chu Qingyan paused. It seemed like only Xiao Liqi dared to ignore the invitation of the ruler of a country like this. This feeling, it really was great. "We'll talk about it later." Xiao Su turned a page and said in a calm voice, "Yes. Speak of the devil. Her Majesty has arrived." With that, Junzi Sheng led people into the side hall. Chu Qingyan was very surprised that Junzi Sheng would take time out of his busy schedule to visit the large ice cube. Wasn't this person supposed to be dealing with the mess left behind by the fourth prince? Junzi Sheng walked toward Xiao Su as soon as he entered. As he walked, he dismissed everyone's salutations. He was in high spirits. Although his steps were still hurried, he didn't have the worried expression from before. People were in high spirits when faced with happy events. This was the most appropriate way to describe Junzi Sheng. "King of England, we listened to your suggestion. Punish them then show mercy." As expected, those restless officials settled down. "Your move was really good." Junzi Sheng talked about national affairs as soon as he opened his mouth. Although his eyes were bloodshot, his complexion was very good. "Your Majesty is too kind." Compared to Junzi Sheng's enthusiasm, Xiao Su could be said to be a pool of cold water. However, this didn't dampen Junzi Sheng's joy this time. He asked, "King of England, tonight, in order to thank you and your subordinates for your help, we will hold a banquet in the front courtyard. How about we all join in the fun?" Chu Qingyan, who was practicing calligraphy on the side and listening to the two talk, couldn't help but raise her brows when she heard this. She looked at the person beside her. Chapter 367. She knew that Big Ice Cube didn't like this kind of social gathering, but now that the emperor had personally invited him, It should be hard for Big Ice Cube to refuse. But she didn't want Big Ice Cube to attend the banquet. First, there shouldn't be only them at the banquet. There should be civil and military officials and relatives of the emperor. If they recognized them and attracted enemies, wouldn't the gains not make up for the losses? Second, they had been delayed in Junlan for too long. It was time to set off. They would definitely drink tonight. Not to mention that Big Ice Cube's body couldn't touch wine. If Hualing and the other meritorious officials got drunk, how could they set off tomorrow? But Xiao Su didn't seem to notice the little fellow beside him winking at him. He said leisurely, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for the banquet. I'm deeply honored." Hearing Xiao Su's words, Gentleman Sheng was relieved. He knew that Xiao Su had an urgent matter, but he didn't know what it was. So he was worried that the palace servants wouldn't be able to convey it to him. So he put down those important matters and made a special trip. This time, Xiao Su had helped him a lot. It was reasonable for him to thank him properly. So after setting a time, Gentleman Sheng left the hall in a relaxed manner. When only they were left in the hall, Chu Qingyan put down her brush and said helplessly, "Big Ice Cube, are you really going to attend their banquet?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "Did this prince say I was going?" Chu Qingyan choked. "Didn't you say you were deeply honored? Is thanking me the same as accepting the invitation?" Xiao Su glanced at her, his eyes full of suspicion. "It can be seen that your comprehension ability is still not good. Later, this prince will have Mu Ling find a few military books for you to study and train your intelligence." Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. "Big Ice Cube, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Gentleman Sheng must also think you're going to the banquet. So the two of you are equally stupid." Xiao Su didn't feel like he was criticizing the emperor of a country at all. He looked at her with disdain. Chu Qingyan felt that her intelligence was deeply despised. But under such circumstances, by right, such words were equivalent to accepting someone else's invitation. However, she couldn't be so sure about this because her Big Ice Cube often didn't play by the rules. This was the charm of language. But the Big Ice Cube didn't accept the invitation. Didn't that mean? Chu Qingyan immediately looked at him with sparkling eyes. Hualing, Xiao Su's gaze swept past Chu Qingyan and looked at the subordinate standing by the side. "This subordinate is here." Hualing took a step forward. "Inform everyone that we will leave the imperial palace in 2 hours. Do not alarm anyone," Xiao Su said in a deep voice. "Yes." Hualing's face lit up with joy. She immediately responded and left the hall. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands and beamed. "I can finally leave this place and go to Jiang Kingdom." The corners of Xiao Su's mouth curled up slightly. On this day, the Junlan Imperial Palace was in a state of chaos. No one noticed that a few people were missing in a certain hall. When red silk covered the entire palace, palace lanterns were hung up high. At the palace gates, there was an endless stream of officials. Handsome men and beautiful women could be seen everywhere. Everyone's faces were brimming with joy, and it was extraordinarily lively. This could be said to be the first time the Junlan Imperial Palace was so lively since the previous emperor passed away. Gentleman Sheng sat on the main seat and was looking at the officials and their families in high spirits. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that the couch on his right was empty. This was the seat he had prepared for Xiao Su. Why wasn't there a single person? Could it be that something went wrong? He immediately ordered Lao Bai beside him. "Go and see why the King of England and the others haven't arrived yet." Lao Bai immediately led people to investigate. After half a cup of tea's time, Gentleman Sheng was listening to the zither music below. Suddenly, he saw Lao Bai walking over with a flustered expression. He had a bad feeling in his heart. "Where is he?" Gentleman Sheng put away the smile on his face and asked coldly. Lao Bai immediately reported, "Your Majesty, the King of England and the others have left." Gentleman Sheng was slightly taken aback. Recalling his answer in the side chamber today, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. This person is too treacherous. He lied to me. No, it's not really a lie. How should I put it? This person is too cunning. Lao Bai couldn't help but ask, "Your Majesty, do you need me to chase them back?" Gentleman Sheng raised his hand and waved it. "No need. You can't keep someone who wants to leave even if you want to. He helped the Junlan Imperial Palace survive the crisis, and I helped him leave successfully. Or even. Yesterday, he had already given the clearance token to Xiao. As long as he had this token, he could enter and leave the Junlan Imperial Palace at will without being interrogated. This would help him go to the Jiang Kingdom. Lao Bai retreated after hearing this. Gentleman Sheng picked up the wine cup on the table and looked in the direction of the Jiang Kingdom. He sighed with emotion. Xiao, you're too smart. Don't blame the Sichuan Emperor for being so wary of you. This time, I made things difficult for you, but I don't regret doing so. However, if one day I ascend to the throne, I hope you and I won't be enemies. He looked in the direction of the Jiang Kingdom and drank the wine in his cup. Such an opponent was too powerful and brilliant. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Otherwise, the Junlan Imperial Palace wouldn't be able to be schemed against. At this time, the Junlan Imperial Palace was filled with singing and dancing. It was extraordinarily lively. In contrast, Chu Qingyan and the others were extremely quiet, because they were walking on the official road. The night was too dark, and the weather was extremely cold. Ordinary people wouldn't stroll outside at night. Chu Qingyan curled up in the quilt and wrapped herself tightly. She looked a little conflicted. When I was in the Junlan Imperial Palace, I wanted to leave all kinds of ways. Now that I've finally gotten my wish and left, I miss it a little. Xiao flicked the wick on the table to make the flame brighter. He raised his eyebrows slightly. If you want to stay, let Hualing send you back. Chu Qingyan shook her head. I just missed the furnace in the palace. Can't I use it anywhere? If it weren't for the fact that she wanted to kill Juanmei's prestige in the princess residence, she wouldn't have let Mu Ling take out those Hualing. Now they were all in the princess residence. After they were busy with the internal strife in the Junlan Imperial Palace, they forgot to prepare new furnaces. She arranged the remaining furnaces for Ethereal and her mother to take care of these two patients who had just recovered from serious illnesses. Big Ice Cube didn't object to her arrangement, but they felt a little apologetic and wanted to send the furnaces back. However, they were rejected by Xiao. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. Anyway, Mu Ling had already sent people to make a new batch of furnaces. She would be able to enjoy the warmth of the fire soon. Just as she was distracted, the person in front of her moved to her side. She looked at him blankly, but heard him say, "Reach out." It was so cold that he wanted her to reach out of the quilt. Was she sure she hadn't said something wrong before punishing her? But she still obediently reached out her hand. He reached out to hold her hand. She was slightly startled. In an instant, she felt a warm current flow from their intertwined palms into her body. She pursed her lips and smiled. Big Ice Cube was using his internal energy to warm her. But she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Big Ice Cube couldn't use his internal energy. Chapter 368. Big Ice Cube, you can't. Once you use your internal energy, it will cause the poison to spread. Hurry up and stop. Chu Qingyan was so scared that she wanted to withdraw her hand. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free from his grip. And the warm current in her body kept increasing. She couldn't help but look up at him. Her voice was almost filled with tears. Big Ice Cube, hurry up. But when she met his half-smiling gaze, her voice came to a halt. Why did the Big Ice Cube look so indifferent? Could it be that there was something she didn't know? It's just warming up. It doesn't take much internal energy, Xiao answered casually. Chu Qingyan stared at him suspiciously. Are you sure? What do you think? Xiao saw that her face had regained its color, so he withdrew his hand and said calmly. Chu Qingyan felt that Big Ice Cube was good at everything, but he loved to imitate her words. And every time, he would use it to shut her up. It was so infuriating. But at this moment, she found that her whole body was warm, and she was not afraid of the cold. She said very mysteriously, Big Ice Cube, your internal energy is really useful. When your clothes are wet, it can automatically dry them. When it's cold in winter, it can even keep out the cold. Looking at her useless appearance, Xiao chose to turn a blind eye. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips after being treated like air by Big Ice Cube. She was just curious. And she believed that in the future, She would also have such an enviable internal energy. After walking for 5 or 6 days, they finally arrived at the border between the Junlan state and the Jiang state. Thanks to the token that Jun Zixing gave them, they were unimpeded all the way. Moreover, the officials seemed to have received orders. As soon as they saw the token, they would send people to accompany them. Therefore, their journey was very smooth. Other than being a little tired from the journey, everything else was very comfortable. However, when Chu Qingyan saw the boundary line, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but click her tongue. No one would have thought that the boundary between Junlan and Jiang was actually a vast ocean. Did that mean that if they wanted to go to Jiang, they had to cross this ocean? Are you kidding me? Chu Qingyan looked at the endless sea and couldn't help but lament in her heart. How long would it take to cross this sea? Fortunately, the local officials had already sent people to arrange a boat. Once they arrived, they could directly board the boat. As soon as she stepped on the deck, Chu Qingyan stepped on the wooden planks with some curiosity. This was her first time on a boat. She had taken a speedboat when she went out to play in the modern world, but she had never come in contact with such a slow-moving boat. Although Jun Zixing's threat to them wasn't right, her subsequent treatment of them was still acceptable. The ship was very big and had everything they needed. However, Big Ice Cube refused the escort of the local officials, and only accepted boatmen who were familiar with the sea. Thus, the group of them entered the vast ocean on a sunny morning. Chu Qingyan strolled around and came back. She walked up and down the entire ship, full of curiosity. When she came back, she heard Turin reporting the news of the past 2 days to Big Ice Cube. The 4 princes' properties were confiscated. Their immediate family members were detained in the imperial prison and imprisoned for life. Their 9 generations were sent to the border and never hired again. Prince Ze was beheaded. 30% of the officials were promoted, and 40% of the officials were dismissed. After the report, Turin finally commented, Jun Zixing's way of handling things should be gentle and gentle. She didn't show any mercy when she should be ruthless. As the person in power, it's only right. Hualing continued. Also, Master, that Junzi heard that you left the capital and sent people to chase after you. However, she was suppressed by Jun Zixing's troops. I heard that after dealing with the affairs of the imperial court, Jun Zixing wanted to betroth her to this year's martial arts champion. Xiao Su's expression didn't change. He didn't care about this kind of unimportant person who would be forgotten after a while. However, Chu Qingyan shook her head. She made such a fuss, but in the end, she was going to marry someone she didn't like. What was the point? Jun Zixing probably chose the martial arts champion to suppress Jun Zimei's temper. After all, she was too arrogant and domineering, and her temper was too fierce. It was probably impossible for her to receive Jun Zixing's previous favor. That night when she barged into the imperial palace, she had already exposed her hidden strength in the imperial palace. With this kind of unstable factor that could stab him at any time, how could Jun Zixing sleep peacefully? In addition, after experiencing this turmoil, Jun Zixing had become more tactful and subtle. Therefore, in his eyes, Jun Zimei was no longer the same as before. However, this kind of person didn't deserve his pity. This was the cause that he had sown, and that was why he had reaped such results. I haven't seen your shadow since early in the morning. Where did you go? Chu Qingyan's thoughts were suddenly interrupted by his sudden question. Chu Qingyan returned to her senses, but didn't look at him. Her eyes flashed with a smile. I didn't go anywhere. I just strolled around. I can't sleep in every day. I'm a growing person. After she finished speaking, she stole a glance at him. Unfortunately, he raised his eyebrows and sneered. Obviously, he didn't believe her words. However, she had no choice. She wouldn't tell him what she had been doing recently. Xiao Su saw that she was looking around but not looking at him. He knew that she was hiding something from him, but he didn't intend to argue with her. It was written in the book of parenting that children would have their own little secrets when they reached a certain age. It was very normal. If one tried to dig deeper, it would be counterproductive. He was afraid that the child would dislike them. Therefore, he thought that the little fellow's recent behavior was very consistent with the description of symptoms in the book of parenting. Therefore, he let her go. Hearing the sound of pages turning, Chu Qingyan turned around in surprise. The big ice block didn't ask her to get to the bottom of the matter. Instead, he was reading the book by himself. She was a little flattered. Oh no, she was shocked. Could it be that he saw through her? Did he already know? But she had asked Turin and the others to keep it a secret. They shouldn't have told others. However, she didn't have to think for long before a wave came crashing over, causing Chu Qingyan to feel dizzy. Why did she feel nauseous? Chu Qingyan reached out to press her chest. However, the feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Her stomach began to churn. Her face turned pale, and she immediately ran to the railing. She supported herself with both hands and began to vomit. After the sky turned dark, she had an ominous feeling. She was seasick. Damn it. Seeing that she didn't look well, Xiao ran out in a hurry and followed her. Seeing that she was vomiting painfully, he couldn't help but reach out to pat her back. Where do you feel uncomfortable? Ask Ethereal to come over and take a look. Chu Qingyan recovered a little strength. She turned around and grabbed his sleeve. Her eyes were watery and her face was pained. Big ice block, I'm seasick. So, he frowned. Catch me. Her eyes went black and she lost consciousness. It was only the first day, but she fainted beautifully. Chapter 369. When she woke up, the sky was already dark. The sea breeze caused the sails to flap loudly, and the strong wind was very scary in the dark. In her hazy state, Chu Qingyan couldn't remember where she was at this time. In addition, her head was very heavy, and she suddenly felt scared. Why wasn't there any light? She grabbed the quilt and slowly covered her head with it. Her heart was in a panic. The person sitting at the table heard the obvious rapid breathing in the air, and the rustling sound. He reached out and the lamp on the table was lit. The room was filled with warm light. Chu Qingyan felt a slight stinging pain in her eyes. And then the darkness was quickly replaced by light. She vaguely regained consciousness. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the hazy figure under the light. She subconsciously called out, "Big ice cube?" The person under the light slowly turned around and looked at her face. It seemed that because of the warm light, he had become gentler than usual. You missed lunch and dinner. The beauty was immediately destroyed by his words. Chu Qingyan sat up and looked at him with a plaintive face. I've already vomited like this, and you still have the mood to bicker with me? Then I won't bicker with you. You can eat tomorrow. Xiao answered very cooperatively. Chu Qingyan became even more plaintive. Anyway, I'm not hungry. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Come in. Xiao's tone was indifferent. The door opened, and a graceful figure walked in. Little girl, you're too weak. You fainted as soon as you got on the boat. TSK, TSK, TSK. With this body, how can you cross mountains and cross rivers with your highness? Other than Cheng Yanluo, Chu Qingyan couldn't think of a second person who could scold her in such a way. At this time, her whole body was weak and dizzy, and her stomach was churning. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan was sick and broke the pot. Every one of you is bullying me. I'm ignoring you. After saying that, she covered her head with the quilt and decided not to talk to them anymore. Oh my, you're putting on airs because you're sick? Fine, let His Highness serve you. I'm going to take my beauty sleep. I'm not going to chat with you. Cheng Yanluo placed the bowl of medicine in front of Xiao and crossed her arms. Let her drink it while it's hot. After saying that, he walked out and closed the door, shutting the room in silence. Because she was covered with a blanket, she couldn't see what was going on outside. After a while, she felt that the room was unbearably quiet. Could it be that Big Ice Cube had gone out too? But she didn't hear any footsteps. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, her eyes lit up. The blanket had been lifted up by a slender finger. She looked in the direction of the finger and saw a large ice cube holding a bowl of medicine. I'm not drinking. She subconsciously refused. It was too bitter. As soon as she smelled it, she felt bitterness in her throat. Therefore, without thinking, she wanted to crawl under the blanket. Unfortunately, someone didn't let her. Xiao pulled her up and held the bowl of medicine in front of her. You have two choices. 1. You drink it yourself. 2. I help you drink it. You choose. Bastard, how were these 2 choices? He was clearly forcing her to drink it. But if he forced her to drink it, she would rather die. A wise man knows when to retreat. Chu Qingyan accepted her fate. She said resolutely, I'll drink it myself. She took the bowl of medicine and took a deep breath. Then she decided that it was better to end the pain quickly than to prolong the pain, so she drank it in one go. But the moment the medicine entered her mouth, her eyes widened. So the medicine wasn't bitter. Yanluo had added sugar to it. This thought made her unable to react in time, so she choked instantly. She coughed so hard that she forgot about everything else. Xiao Su quickly snatched the bowl from her to prevent her from knocking it over. Then, he freed one hand to help her catch her breath. You can even choke on a bowl of medicine. What should I say about you? She didn't know if she had heard wrongly, but there was a hint of helplessness in his voice. However, she knew that she was in the wrong. After Chu Qingyan stopped coughing, she didn't take it seriously. She finished the rest of the medicine with his hand. She didn't expect that she would be forced to choose the second choice in the end. It had to be said that after becoming a divine doctor, this kind of minor illness was a piece of cake for them. After drinking the medicine, Chu Qingyan felt that the dizziness that had been plaguing her had disappeared. Moreover, her stomach felt better. She couldn't help but fall onto the bed and sigh. It's the happiest when there's no illness or disaster. I didn't think much of it in the past, but when I feel dizzy and hot, I miss it so much. Xiao Su stood up and placed the bowl on the table. When he heard her words, he suddenly thought of the words that she had been nagging at him. Simple was easy to be satisfied. Ordinary was happiness. This little fellow's words sometimes made sense. A grumbling sound interrupted his train of thought. He turned his head in confusion, and happened to meet her somewhat unnatural smile. I'm hungry. Who just said that she wasn't hungry anyway? Xiao Su looked at her with his arms crossed. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. Was there a need to be so stingy? She blinked. She couldn't win against him, but fighting was better than fighting. So she put her hands on one end of the quilt and began to make a scene on the bed. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I'm hungry, I want to eat. Important things had to be said 3 times. Xiao Su looked at the person who was rolling on the bed and his eyes twitched. She looked like a little cat that was whining and complaining. It seems that you're not hungry enough. You still have the strength to toss and turn. The mournful whining stopped abruptly, leaving behind a pair of watery eyes. I'm hungry, I want to eat, I want to be kept, I want to be petted. Meow. When she was in the dormitory, she often played like this with her roommates, so when the scene reappeared, she subconsciously blurted it out and didn't realize that she had said anything inappropriate. But Xiao Su, who had already been bombarded by Chu Qingyan's words, did not have any special thoughts about her words. He only felt that this was more like a little cat. Chu Qingyan could faintly hear something being hit outside the door. She thought that maybe the wind was too strong and had blown something down. In the end, the result of the scene was that Chu Qingyan received a sumptuous dinner. But because she was too hungry and ate too much, she was burping the entire night. Chu Qingyan felt that she had lost a lot of face. But what Chu Qingyan didn't know was that her life's innocence had been ruined tonight. On the ship, the fire spirit was mysteriously talking to the wood spirit and the others about what he had heard outside the little princess consort's room today. I really couldn't tell that the little princess consort was such an unrestrained person. The wood spirit commented in disbelief. She's a little mischievous. Since ancient times, heroes have always come from youths. There's nothing strange about it. Ethereal casually replied. The fire spirit and the others looked at him. His words were clearly perfunctory. He had been strange these past few days. But Turin spoke at this time. Don't you think that the little princess consort is too mature? Everyone heard this and nodded in agreement. It was indeed so. But it was perfect for their master. One was sly and one was black-bellied, a perfect match. Chapter 370. She had to admit that Yanluo's medicine was very useful. After drinking it, she was basically immune to the waves. When she looked at the waves, she didn't feel dizzy anymore. Early in the morning, Before the sun had even risen, Chu Qingyan had already gotten up. Mistress, you were seasick yesterday. Don't you want to rest today? Xining came in with a basin of water and asked with a little distress. It's fine. My body isn't that weak. Chu Qingyan smiled and stretched. She took a cloth towel and wiped her cheeks. Xining went out and came back with a food box in her hand. She opened the lid and took out the dishes inside. Mistress, yesterday His Highness ordered the chef to make the dishes for you without any fishy smell. Look, the dishes this morning are very light and delicious. Hearing Xining's laughter, Chu Qingyan walked over and sat down. Looking at the dishes on the table, a faint warmth welled up in her heart. She picked up the chopsticks and ate a few mouthfuls. She felt that the taste was good. Later, have someone prepare a similar dish. When His Highness gets up, send it over. Xining curved her lips into a smile. Yes, mistress. After breakfast, Chu Qingyan pushed open the door. It was still dark outside, only a few stars twinkling weakly in the sky. The wind was very strong, almost blowing her back to her room. Chu Qingyan gathered her cloak and put on her hat, then quickly walked out of the door. She didn't stop and went straight to the deck. The fierce cavalry guarding the ship saw the moving silkworm cocoon, and were already used to it. They looked straight ahead and watched her pass by. When she reached the deck, there was already someone waiting there. A special lantern hung on the mast. It wouldn't be extinguished because of the strong wind, but because of the influence of the wind, the shadows cast on the ship were somewhat vague. Chu Qingyan took off her hat and said to the figure, I'm here. The figure with his back to her turned around. It was Turin. Little princess, why don't you show me the swordsmanship that you've been practicing for the past few days? Earth Spirit said. Okay. Chu Qingyan took off her cloak and casually tossed it aside. The white fox fur coat was already hanging on a crossbar. At this time, she was wearing a tight-fitting corset, which made it easier for her to move her limbs. She took the long sword that Turin had thrown to her. Holding the sword with her right hand, she stroked the sword with her left index and middle finger. Facing the faint light, she suddenly drew the sword. Her sword pierced through the void, and her movements were as smooth as flowing water. Sometimes she would leap into the air and stab. Sometimes she would flip and leap like a swimming dragon. Sometimes she would spit out her tongue like a white snake. Her body was as light as a swallow, and her sword was as fast as lightning. She had been practicing this set of sword techniques for an hour. Her lapel was soaked in sweat, but she did not seem to feel it. She only slowly exhaled when she finally withdrew her sword. How is it? Chu Qingyan turned around and asked. Turin nodded, and a trace of appreciation appeared in his eyes. Little princess has almost finished practicing the 12 moves of the Raging Flame Sword. This subordinate feels that it's time to change to the next set. Chu Qingyan finally let out a sigh of relief. Turin was famous for being strict. Being able to get his affirmation. It was not in vain that she woke up early to practice. Okay. Chu Qingyan nodded and said, demonstrate it once first. I will follow. And this subordinate will only demonstrate this set of sword techniques once. How much you can remember depends on yourself. Turin did not speak nonsense. He drew his sword and drew it against the wind. Chu Qingyan held the sword and stood upright. Her eyes were fixed on his movements. This set of sword techniques was more complicated than the Raging Flame Sword. It was also more flexible, but its lethality was also stronger. Turin was the leader of the hidden guards, and was usually very busy. It was already very difficult for him to squeeze out a bit of time to teach her. So her eyes did not stray, not daring to miss a single detail. But it had to be said that a strict teacher produced a fine disciple. Turin's martial arts were very strong. Other than Hualing and a few others that could compete with him, there were very few opponents. She had practiced with him for a while, and could clearly feel that she had made a lot of progress. Her moves went from shaky at the beginning to flexible now. Turin put away his sword. His breathing was steady, unlike her who was panting after practicing a set of moves. She thought that this was the difference in their skills. Little princess, practice alone. This subordinate has other matters to attend to and will leave first. Turin nodded at her and then left. Chu Qingyan knew that he had important matters to attend to, so she did not say anything and let him leave. She closed her eyes and went over the moves that Turin had just demonstrated in her mind. Then she picked up the sword and started practicing. Turin had said that at her current age, her body was at its softest and was very malleable. If she was willing to work hard, it was not impossible for her to become outstanding. She was also glad that she had a photographic memory. In the past, she was too lazy and never used her strengths. Now that she wanted to work hard, she realized that she was not completely useless. That day, she used her sword to defend against the enemy in the princess palace. She found that the simple sword moves she had learned in the king's palace were still useful. It was just that she was lacking in practice and her skills were still shallow. If it wasn't for Hualing and the others opening the way, she would not have been able to break through the encirclement so smoothly. She had said to herself before that once she was out of danger, she would properly practice martial arts. But she found that there were many things that she could not always say in her heart. Otherwise, if she waited a bit longer, all her plans would be delayed. So when she left Junlan, she secretly went to find Turin, hoping that he could resume teaching her in the king's palace. In the past, she had been forced to practice martial arts by the big ice cube. She did not like being forced by others and her heart was a bit conflicted. So, she always slacked off and did not put much effort into it. But this time, she was the one who brought it up. She no longer wanted to hide under someone else's wings. She was a person who would do what she said. Once she made up her mind, she would not easily give up. She trained hard in the morning and the cold wind pierced her bones, but she did not care. What she wanted was a day when she no longer needed to be protected by others. And this time, she had made up her mind to work hard because she had another goal. She swung her sword and spun her body in the air. She went from being unfamiliar to proficient, practicing over and over again. On the deck to the side, two people were leaning against the railing. Turin, don't you hate teaching people the most? Last time, you couldn't disobey master's orders. Why did you agree this time without master's orders? Hualing was clearly very curious. Turin's gaze swept over the figure training hard on the deck and he faintly smiled. Do you want a weak mistress, or do you want a mistress who can fight side by side with master? Of course it's the latter. Hualing replied without hesitation. But after replying, Hualing couldn't help smiling. You're still the same, always putting master first. This sentence was both right and wrong. Turin remembered that day when he had just finished patrolling the area. He had heard the little princess call out to him. Turin, I want to practice martial arts again. Can I ask you for a favor? She smiled as she sincerely asked him. Why? He was very serious about everything, so he treated others the same. He would never forget how unwilling she was to practice Qinggong in the past. I can't be protected by His Highness forever, right? So I want to become strong. Chapter 371. Turin looked at the person who was practicing and said with a bit of emotion, Sometimes I feel that the marriage bestowed by the retired emperor was quite reliable. Hualing was clearly shocked when he heard this. Didn't you dislike it before? Aren't you the same? Turin asked back. Hualing scratched his head. I did dislike it at the time, but I didn't feel that strongly afterwards. When the little princess came to find me, I asked her. Turin suddenly changed the topic. What did you ask? Hualing blurted out. Turin remembered that she said she wanted to become stronger. He said, with His Highness' protection you don't need to worry about danger. That was her answer at the time. But I also want to protect him. He remembered the little princess smile at the time. It was a bit faint, but it was incomparably serious. So you agreed to her? Hualing heard his story and couldn't help being stunned. Although her words sound like she overestimates herself. Who can guarantee the future? Turin gave a soft laugh. Hualing nodded in agreement. That's right. You have to have a dream. What if you see a ghost? However, Hualing added. Turin, don't you feel like our words are a bit strange right now? Turin looked at him deeply. Your words have already been successfully taken away by the little princess. They had been together for almost a year. That person who had accidentally barged in was slowly influencing them with her words and actions. Even Master was not spared. Hualing was stunned at first before giving an indifferent shrug. Anyway, I'm not the only one who's been taken away. So the two of them turned to do proper business. Chu Qingyan practiced the sword move no less than 10 times before panting as she put away her sword. When Turin was demonstrating, he had told her that this sword move was called the Heaven and Earth Sword. If the Raging Flame Sword was focused on defense, then the Heaven and Earth Sword was focused on offense. She found that Xiao Laiqi's sword moves did not have as many variations as other people's because they did not care about looking good, but rather about being fast and accurate. How could flowery moves be used to kill enemies? After she calmed her breathing, she turned around and handed the sword in her hand to Xiao Laiqi, who was standing at the side. She took the cloak and draped it over her body. She did not tell Big Ice Cube that she practiced martial arts because she wanted to give him a surprise. At this time, the sun was rising, and the Big Ice Cube should be waking up soon. Because of his health, he woke up later than usual in the Sichuan. If it was in the past, he would have already gotten up to practice his sword. Chu Qingyan looked at the sky. There was already a bit of daylight at the intersection of the water and the sky. She narrowed her eyes. She heard that they would reach the border of the Jiang Kingdom in 3 days. She was worried about the whereabouts of the love grass. But right now, she still had something important to do. That was the Big Ice Cube's birthday. She had spent a lot of effort to prepare a gift for him. She hoped that he would not be disappointed when the time came. She returned to her room with a faint smile. She had to hurry up and change her clothes because she still had to accompany Big Ice Cube for dinner later. Because the morning exercise had consumed a lot of energy, she began to wolf down the food as soon as she sat down. Xiao Su held the bowl and was a little surprised. Didn't you eat until you were full last night and rolled around in bed? Why do you look like a reincarnated hungry ghost when you wake up early in the morning? 2 drops of sweat appeared on her forehead because of her curiosity towards Big Ice Cube. She couldn't have been discovered, right? I'm growing, she stammered when she opened her mouth, but she was confident in the end. Xiao Su nodded. The little fellow had indeed grown a lot in the past month, and her small body had also thickened. She was no longer as weak as before. When we reach the Jiang Kingdom, I'll get someone to make you some clothes that fit you. Xiao Su put down the bowl and looked at her. Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked down at her clothes when she heard that. It seemed that her clothes had become much shorter recently. No wonder Big Ice Cube looked at her with such disdain. However, since someone was willing to give her money to spend, it would be a waste not to take it. She nodded happily and agreed. Big Ice Cube, a month has passed so quickly. But when I think about it, I feel that a lot of things have happened. After Chu Qingyan was full, she began to feel emotional. Sichuan escaped, Junlan was detained, and he reversed Junlan's situation. He went all the way to the west and crossed the sea. Everything seemed to have happened yesterday, but if she thought about it carefully, she would not be able to recall it even after a day and a night. Xiao Su replied indifferently. He was not a person who liked to be sad. He was already giving the little fellow face by responding to her emotions. She was already used to Big Ice Cube's indifference. She rolled her eyes and asked, "What is the most unforgettable thing in your life?" "This life?" Xiao Su sneered when he heard that. He seemed to disagree. 20 years is too short. It can't be said to be the most unforgettable thing. Chu Qingyan's face darkened. It was a good question, but it was met with his disdain. Chu Qingyan turned her head and snorted. "You don't have it." "I do, but I won't tell you." Xiao Su didn't probe further into her words. "You're too boring. I'm not going to play with you." Chu Qingyan thought of something and deliberately stuck her tongue out at him. She quickly walked out the door. Seeing her go out, Xiao Su did not stop her. Instead, he took her question to heart. The most unforgettable thing. That day, she cried her eyes out and told him that she did not want him to leave her alone. That night, she rushed over to block that arrow. That day, after the medicinal bath, she supported him with difficulty, but did not dare to let go. There was no most unforgettable word. She did not expect that the memories of these 20 years would not be as deep as the memories after she came. Xiao Su curled his lips. Only after Hualing came in did he retract his smile. What's the matter? Water Spirit sent news that there is still no news of the love grass. Hualing sighed. Investigate again. Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. His mood did not fluctuate much because of these words. Yes. Hualing retreated. Xiao Su got up. Lin Hai stood with his hands behind his back. In the past 20 years, he had experienced all kinds of hardships and dangers. He had long since disregarded life and death. It was just that this was the first time he wanted to live. After Chu Qingyan left, she turned to Cheng Yanluo's room. At this time, Cheng Yanluo had already woken up. Seeing Chu Qingyan's refreshed expression, she could not help but smile. Finished practicing martial arts? And the sun is already high up in the sky. I've already finished practicing. Chu Qingyan did not stand on ceremony and found a place to sit down. TSK. In the past, you would not have woken up at this time. If it were not for the fact that you have been a little more diligent recently, you would have been caught by your big ice cube and punished to copy characters. Don't get carried away. Cheng Yanluo mercilessly exposed her. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Please don't expose me. Cheng Yanluo raised her eyebrows. Why are you not in your room with your big ice cube at this time? Why are you here? Of course it's business. How's the song I asked you to practice? Chu Qingyan tugged at her sleeve and asked. I knew you wouldn't ask me anything good. Cheng Yanluo glared at her. Hee, you play the zither so well. Wouldn't it be a waste if you don't play it for others to hear? She acted coquettishly. Chapter 372. Cheng Yanluo couldn't resist her coquettishness, so she pointed at something covered by a cloth. Chu Qingyan lifted the cloth and saw a guqin lying quietly on the ground. Chu Qingyan turned to look at Cheng Yanluo, who said, I've been practicing hard recently so that I won't embarrass you. Chu Qingyan immediately hugged her. Sister Yanluo, you're the best. Go away. Go away. You're only sweet-talking now. Cheng Yanluo shooed her away as though she was shooing a mosquito. Of course, she knew that Yanluo was joking. However, she could clearly feel that Yanluo had lost a lot of weight. Sister Yanluo, did our chef mistreat you recently? Look at you. You're already thin, but now you're even thinner. Chu Qingyan frowned and looked at her worriedly. Cheng Yanluo released her hand and sat down. She poured herself a cup of tea and smiled. Aren't all girls trying to slim down these days? I'm just following the trend. She didn't believe her. However, she recalled what had happened on the roof and decided not to ask further. She was just hurt by love. She was an outsider, so what could she say? Whoever started the trouble should end it. Sister Yanluo, I'll get Xining to prepare some of your favorite pastries and send them over. That was all she could do. Cheng Yanluo raised her eyebrows and smiled. Little girl, I'm not as weak as you think. Chu Qingyan stuck her tongue out. Can't you let your sister care for you? All right, I think it's better to use something more practical instead of food. For example, money. Cheng Yanluo smiled slyly. Chu Qingyan pushed her away. You're only thinking about money. Be careful not to fall into it. Don't you know that money isn't everything, but you can't do anything without money? I'm happy to fall into it. It's none of your business. Cheng Yanluo crossed her legs and looked like a ruffian. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that she had regained her usual vigor. However, she couldn't help but bicker with her again. After a while she walked out. Earlier on, she had practiced the sword dance with Sister Yanluo. She had finally gotten the rhythm right, and the effect was pretty good. Thus she left with satisfaction. She thought for a moment and went to the kitchen. Just as she passed by the small window, she saw a familiar figure. She immediately stopped in her tracks, and a voice came from inside. She doesn't like things that are too sweet. You can add some chili to the dishes. It's best not to add ginger. She doesn't like the taste of ginger. All right. Chu Qingyan listened to Ethereal's long-winded instructions to Chef, and was a little surprised. This was the first time she saw him being so meticulous. She couldn't help but sigh regretfully. If only Yanluo could see this scene. Just as she was in a daze, the voice inside had already disappeared. She immediately turned to another corner, and only after the ethereal spirit left did she enter the kitchen. For the past few days, he had been researching how to make a cake without a rice cooker. He had just figured out the method yesterday, and had been practicing it repeatedly. When the chefs in the kitchen saw that this little cooking expert had come again, they immediately retreated. This so-called cooking didn't mean that the food was delicious, but it meant that the kitchen would burn down if she wasn't careful. Seeing the chef's attitude towards her, Chu Qingyan smiled bitterly. Actually, she was a good cook, but she wasn't cooking now. There weren't any modern kitchen utensils in ancient times, so it was really difficult for her. This time, she managed to cook a decent cake, but the texture was slightly inferior. However, she believed that after a few more tries, she would be able to make a cake that was exactly the same as the one in modern times. She rubbed her sore arms, put down the finished product and left. She had other important things to do. After Chu Qingyan left, the chef saw that the kitchen was still intact and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it didn't burn down this time. Xining was already waiting for her. "Mistress, the lanterns and ribbons are ready. We're just waiting for your order to set them up," Xining reported. And then, Chu Qingyan followed her to the small warehouse and inspected the style of the lanterns. Xining helped while saying, "These lanterns were made by Lord Wood's spirit according to the blueprint you gave. This servant saw the finished product. It's very beautiful." These lanterns were all foldable and didn't take up much space. It was also very easy to set them up. Chu Qingyan stood up and patted the dust off her hands. She nodded in satisfaction. "You can start decorating tomorrow afternoon. Have Huoling arrange a few people to help you. If you can't find a place, call Jean Xian." "Okay." Xining agreed. Chu Qingyan thought for a bit and left the small warehouse. She had forgotten to check tomorrow night's menu with the kitchen. As soon as she appeared on the deck, a figure happily jumped towards her. Kai, tomorrow is Shu." As soon as Chu Qingyan heard her father speak, she knew what he was going to say and immediately stopped him. "Do you want His Highness to hear it?" Right, we have to maintain a sense of mystery." Father Chu immediately covered his mouth. Chu Qingyan smiled. "Alright, it's fine if you say it softly. Just don't go around shouting, and letting His Highness know is enough." "No, father won't say it." Father Chu shook his head. Then he mysteriously whispered into his daughter's ear. Kai, father will tell you. Father has also prepared a gift for son-in-law." "What gift?" Chu Qingyan was instantly curious and asked with a smile. No, we have to maintain a sense of mystery." Father Chu covered his mouth again and innocently blinked at his daughter. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. Father was actually keeping her in suspense. However, Big Ice Cube should be happy that father had such intentions. "Father, mother has just recovered. Remember not to let her out in the wind." Chu Qingyan recalled this matter and reminded him. "Father knows. She's not a child. You're always so long-winded. I can take care of my own wife. You just have to take care of yourselves." Father Chu imitated her and rolled his eyes. It was rare to see her father so serious. Chu Qingyan shook her head and laughed. Okay. I'll leave mother to you." "But Kai Ethereal is so pitiful. Look, he just recovered. Little Yama doesn't want him anymore." Father Chu started to ramble again. "Father, let's not interfere with Ethereal and Sister Yenlua's matters. Let nature take its course." Chu Qingyan was afraid that her father would stir up trouble again, so she hurriedly reminded him. Father Chu shook his head disapprovingly. "Little Kai, you don't understand. When two people don't interact with each other for the rest of their lives, they will need help from others. If I don't help, they will forget about each other forever." Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Why did her father's words sound so strange? Could it be that he had fallen in love with the role of matchmaker? Chapter 373. Father, why don't you stop for a while and let them have a cold war for a while? She tried to persuade him. Father Chu thought for a while, then reluctantly agreed. All right, I'll let them have a cold war for a while. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief, but her father's next sentence almost made her stumble. 2 days should be enough. The day after tomorrow, Father Jiang will start to matchmake them. Then these 2 days are so boring. Why don't Father matchmake Xining and that boy Jin Xian? Chu Qingyan felt that she could only pray for these 2 couples in her heart. As for the rest, there was nothing she could do. She was speechless to have a father who was so passionate about being a matchmaker. After wandering around the kitchen, Chu Qingyan returned to Xiao Su's room. She didn't see him in the morning and only came back when it was time for lunch. Xiao Su's gaze shifted from the book to her. Where did you go? The big ice cube rarely asked her about her thoughts. Did she give herself away by specially asking? She immediately revealed a smile. I didn't go anywhere, I just walked around. Is that so? Xiao Su raised his brows slightly, his face full of disbelief. Didn't you already walk around when you first boarded the ship? A big ice cube. Don't you know that the same scenery will feel different when one appreciates it with a different mindset? Chu Qingyan argued, but her voice was weak, and it seemed like she was trying to cover it up. Oh, this prince didn't know that when one's mindset is different, one will be stained with a burnt smell after wandering around? Then the next time you wander around, what will your body smell like? The smell of fish? Or does it smell like rouge? Xiao Su put down the book in his hand and looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Chu Qingyan looked at the person in front of her, one word written in her eyes. She didn't believe him. She instantly broke out in cold sweat. Tomorrow was his birthday. If he found out that something was wrong, wouldn't all her efforts be for naught? However, it seemed that things were developing in a direction that she did not expect. It seems like you're hiding something from this prince, said Xiao Su indifferently, hitting the nail on the head. I didn't. Chu Qingyan straightened her neck, with a look that said, what can you do about it? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. He said to the door, Hualing. As soon as he finished speaking, the fire spirit appeared. Your subordinate is here. Chu Qingyan knew something was wrong. Report what the little princess has done today. Xiao Su glanced at her and said casually. Hualing nodded. The little princess consort woke up this morning and went to find Miss Chung to discuss the zither. It took 2 hours. After coming out, she went to the kitchen to find the chef to compare her cooking skills, which took half an hour. Then she met old Master Chu on the road and talked to him for a bit before finally returning to her room. Chu Qingyan's heart relaxed. Fortunately, she had told Hualing and the others not to reveal the fact that she was secretly preparing for Big Ice Cube's birthday. Only then could she avoid being exposed. There didn't seem to be any problems. Then the burnt smell on her body. Xiao Su's tone was faint. No one could tell what he was thinking. The little princess consort burnt the rice and almost burned down the kitchen. Hualing snickered. Xiao Su nodded. This sounded reasonable, so he waved his hand to dismiss him. Yes. Before Hualing turned to leave, he gave her a victory sign. Chu Qingyan suppressed her laughter and turned to smile innocently at her big ice cube. See, I didn't lie to you. You're still doubting me. Xiao Su curled his lips in response to her complaint. Whether it's true or not is still up for debate. So cold. Big Ice Cube's smile mysteriously caused the temperature in the air to drop. So scary. At this time, Xining just happened to bring the dishes over. The two's topic ended there. In the blink of an eye, it was night time. Chu Qingyan shook her arm. It was like Big Ice Cube had eaten the wrong medicine today. He actually had her go write the character Lin. She had spent the entire afternoon writing and her entire hand was about to be crippled. As soon as she stepped out of the door, she saw Jin Xian standing outside, and the words her father had said to her today immediately popped up in her mind. She walked over and couldn't help saying, if father asks you to do anything these 2 days, remember to think it over before doing it. She immediately turned to leave after saying this. She was afraid that he would ask why. She couldn't tell him that her father wanted to help him matchmake. Jin Xian had just heard his master's words when she disappeared in the blink of an eye. This made him a bit confused. Was old Master Chu that scary? Why did everyone say this to him? Then when old Master Chu told him to go to the small warehouse, should he still go? Jin Xian hesitated. At night, Chu Qingyan was stretching her legs in her room. Although she was young and her body was soft, Compared to other people who started practicing martial arts at the age of 5 or 6, she was still lacking by a lot. So she had to work hard to make up for her late start. After stretching her legs, she began to do handstands. When she was in the modern world, handstands, push-ups, sit-ups, and so on were all painful things for her. She would never do them if she could avoid them. But now, she was willing to endure them. She was upside down, and her blood flowed down. She felt that she could use this time to think about life. However, a pair of shoes appeared in front of her. "Master, His Highness is looking for you." Xining bent down and looked into her eyes. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Why was Big Ice Cube looking for her at this time? Could it be that her plan had been exposed? Did he say what it was about? She stood up and asked. Xining shook her head. Seeing this, she changed her clothes and left the room with a nervous heart. She walked towards Xiao Su's room. At this time, thousands of miles away in Sichuan Kingdom, Sichuan Emperor looked at the memorial in his hand. The contents of the memorial made him frown deeply. "Your Majesty, is there still no news from His Royal Highness?" Eunuch Xiao could not help but ask. "Yes, it's been a month. There's no news at all." Sichuan Emperor closed the memorial and rubbed his eyes. His face was a little tired. He looked at the dark night sky outside with a heavy heart. Not knowing whether Su was dead or alive was like a thorn in his heart. It was very uncomfortable. "Do you think he's hiding because he knows my intentions?" Sichuan Emperor suddenly asked. I don't know." Eunuch Qiao lowered his head and said. Eunuch Qiao did not dare to say more. He knew that His Majesty was in a bad mood at this time. It was better for him not to provoke His Majesty. Suddenly, he heard a sigh above his head. Eunuch Qiao became even more cautious with his words and actions. In another palace, Xiaoho reclined on the couch with a letter in his hand, not knowing whether he's dead or alive. His voice was full of sarcasm. "Master, we still can't find the whereabouts of the King of England." The man in black knelt and said in shame, "If we find his body, it proves that he's really dead. But after he was injured, he seemed to have disappeared." Xiaoho smiled evilly. The letter in his hand turned into ashes. "We can only say that he's hiding somewhere to heal." Then what should this subordinate do? "There's no cure for the snake's kiss poison, but I believe that he's tough. Pass down the order to expand the search area. Don't just limit it to Sichuan." "Yes." Xiaoho sneered. Sichuan was very big, but it was also very dangerous. Maybe he didn't stay in Sichuan. Otherwise, with so many people looking for him, how could they not find him? Chapter 374. Chu Qingyan lightly knocked on his door. Just as she retracted her hand, she heard his voice. She did not hesitate to open the door. "Big Ice Cube, you were looking for me?" Chu Qingyan turned to close the door, and also closed the cold wind outside. She slowly walked in front of him. "Yes." Xiao Su glanced at her and pointed at her. Chu Qingyan looked in the direction of his finger. She saw a black cloth covering something lying on the table. What was this? Such a familiar feeling. She walked over and lifted the black cloth. A brand new guqin appeared in front of her eyes. This is... She was at a loss. She did not understand the Big Ice Cube's intentions. Did he want her to help him identify the guqin? How is it? Xiao Su looked at her shocked face and was a bit displeased. Shouldn't she be happy? Chu Qingyan heard this. As expected, he wanted her to help him identify it. But she did not know how to identify the guqin at all. She could only reach out and touch the body of the guqin. She coughed a few times and said, "I think it's not bad. At least it's very comfortable to touch." Xiao Su's expression softened when he heard this. This was made from the best red sandalwood. In this world, other than the flowing water guqin and the Gaoshan guqin, there was no third guqin that could compare to it. "You know how to play?" Xiao Su asked. "I don't know." How could she know this? In the modern era, this kind of guqin had to be specially registered, but she had never thought of developing in the direction of a talented girl. She had transmigrated and her family was too poor. Even though her mother was a famous talented girl in the capital, she did not have the money to buy a guqin, and could not teach her. "Very good, this king will teach you. Xiao Su stood up and walked towards her. Chu Qingyan's fingers had just touched the strings of the zither when she was shocked by his words. The zither strings made a low, raspy sound as she touched them. Why was it good that she did not know how to play the guqin? More importantly, why did the big ice cube suddenly want to teach her how to play the guqin? This was not scientific. But by the time she reacted, she was already sitting on a chair, and Big Ice Cube was sitting beside her. His large hand held her hand and placed it on the strings of the zither. His voice was low as he taught her carefully. Understood. Xiao Su asked her after he finished speaking, but seeing her absent-minded look, he couldn't help but raise his hand and give her a chestnut. Be serious. It was only then that Chu Qingyan calmed herself down and concentrated on playing the zither under his guidance. 2 hours later, Chu Qingyan was so tired that she was about to lie down. She looked at her swollen fingers and couldn't help but beg for mercy. Big Ice Cube, since I'm a beginner, let me go first. The person sitting at the table drinking tea heard her and waved at her. Come here. Chu Qingyan felt as if she had been granted amnesty and immediately walked towards him. Xiao Su took the ointment from the table, held her finger, and carefully applied the ointment. Chu Qingyan originally wanted to ask him why he suddenly wanted to teach her how to play the zither, but when the words came out of her mouth, she didn't ask, because the big ice cube seriously helping her apply the medicine was really beautiful. Although it wasn't his real appearance, she couldn't help but feel that it was beautiful. You don't have to learn the zither from Miss Qing in the future. Chu Qingyan was enjoying the cool and comfortable feeling of the ointment when she suddenly heard the big ice cube say this. Learn the zither from Sister Yen Luo? Only then did she recall that when Hualing had reported her whereabouts today, he had said that he was learning the zither from Sister Yen Luo. No wonder the big ice cube suddenly wanted to teach her. However, was there a difference between him and Sister Yen Luo? Oh, she answered in puzzlement. Although she was full of doubts, an obedient child would get candy, so she didn't ask any more questions. After applying the ointment, the swelling will subside in a while. Xiao Su retracted his hand and spoke indifferently. Oh, Big Ice Cube, I didn't expect you to know how to play the zither. You've never mentioned it before. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but sigh with emotion. There's nothing to say. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Was it strange to know how to play the zither? Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. He made it sound like it was necessary for everyone. She hated straight-A students the most. Take this zither with you and bring it back tomorrow. Xiao Su waved at her, indicating that she could go back and rest. What the hell? Was she still going to practice the zither tomorrow? Xiao Su ignored Chu Qingyan's shocked expression. Wait, aren't you going to practice the zither tomorrow? Just leave it here first. It's troublesome to bring it back. She knew that it was hard to change the big ice cube's mind, so she didn't make any last-ditch attempts. However, she couldn't figure out why he wanted to take the zither away. You can familiarize yourself with the music when you bring it back. Besides, he raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a matter-of-fact expression. If you don't keep your zither, who will help you? After a while, Chu Qingyan stood outside the door, hugging the seemingly heavy but actually light zither. She felt that she had yet to recover from the shock of what had just happened. She seemed to have accidentally accepted the big ice cube's gift. He was the one whose birthday was coming up, not hers. After Chu Qingyan left, Xiao Su poured himself a glass of water and took a sip. An unknown emotion gradually appeared in his eyes. He should be the one teaching her. He didn't need to borrow others' hands. The next day, Chu Qingyan accompanied Xiao Su for breakfast as usual. Everything was normal. But for some reason, Xiao Su felt that the atmosphere was a bit strange. However, he saw that the little girl was as obedient as usual, and thought that he was imagining things. Big Ice Cube, can I ask you for a favor today? Chu Qingyan suddenly asked him halfway through the meal. What is it? Xiao Su drank his soup without moving. Promise me first. Chu Qingyan leaned on the table and said with sparkling eyes. Xiao Su glanced at her. If you don't want to say it, then don't talk about it. Okay, you're not cute at all. Chu Qingyan muttered. Xiao Su's mouth twitched. Can you move the morning piano practice to the afternoon? She blinked and asked, "What's the reason?" Xiao looked at her and raised his eyebrows. "I wanted to talk to Sister Yanluo about what kind of clothes a girl should wear this morning." Chu Qingyan continued to blink her lashes. His little girl had reached the age where she needed to dress up, so he didn't think much of it and let her go. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief when she stepped out of the door. She had gone through so much trouble to get out, and she had to make use of the time to familiarize herself with the program a few more times with Yanluo. To prevent Big Ice Cube from discovering them, they had to do it secretly. Soon it was time for piano practice. Xiao had stopped to reprimand her more than 3 times. "Why are you not in the right state today?" Xiao caught her absent-minded look again. He got up and returned to the couch with an inquisitive look on his face. "I'm nervous." Chu Qingyan coughed softly. "Nervous? What's there to be nervous about?" Xiao frowned. Was he too fierce? "Little Princess Consort, everything is ready." Suddenly, someone knocked on the door and a voice sounded. "Nervous about what's next?" When Chu Qingyan heard the voice outside, she immediately stood up from the chair and ran to him. Night had fallen, and the fun was about to begin. Chapter 375. What? Before Xiao could react, the person who had been absent-minded earlier had already run in front of him. Chu Qingyan circled behind him, intending to cover his eyes. But when her hand touched his eyes, she estimated her height and estimated that if he stood up, she would not be able to cover his eyes. Thus, she tugged at his sleeve and urged, "Big Ice Cube, close your eyes first." Xiao did not understand. Just as he was about to take her hand and question her, she took out a silk belt from somewhere and directly covered his eyes. Seeing that he was not cooperating, Chu Qingyan whispered into his ear, "Big Ice Cube, cooperate. There will be a surprise for you later." When Xiao heard this, his hand that had just touched the silk belt paused. In the end, he retracted his hand and did not do anything else. He did not know what the little fellow was planning to do, but he knew that she would not act rashly. In the end, he let her do as she pleased. "All right, Big Ice Cube, come with me." After covering the silk belt, she tied a knot behind his hair. Chu Qingyan took his hand and indicated for him to stand up. Xiao only felt a warmth in his hand. A small hand like a worm wormed into his hand. He pursed his lips and stood up with her strength. At this time, the door was already opened. Chu Qingyan pulled him out of the room step by step. She did not know whether it was because of his complete trust in her, or because of the Big Ice Cube's excellent sense of direction. Although she held his hand carefully, the Big Ice Cube walked unhurriedly, as if he was not worried at all. Outside the door, the sea breeze blew. It was cold and somewhat bone-piercing. But the more they walked, the more they seemed to melt into a circle of fire. Even the wind carried some warmth. Xiao frowned slightly. Because he could not see, his other senses were sharper than usual. Not only the wind, but even the air was filled with a faint fragrance. He heard a slight sound, like footsteps, but also like something rising. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. No one made a sound. Xiao was even more curious about what the little fellow was up to. When Chu Qingyan led Xiao out, everyone immediately went to their positions. All the lanterns were hung up, and the ribbons danced in the wind. The entire ship seemed to be shrouded in a large hazy light. It was magnificent, and every inch of the ship was plated with golden light. If one looked down from above from her angle, it looked like a golden bun that had been fried to a golden color. After bringing Xiao to the center of the deck, Chu Qingyan looked around and saw that everything was ready. Huo Ling and the others were also in place. She nodded slightly. Then she made a gesture to Xining, who was standing at the side. Xining understood tacitly and pulled Jean Xian to the side of the small table, waiting for her master's order. Xiao felt like he was in a dark place. There was a faint light in front of him, but he couldn't see it clearly. The only thing he could feel was his hand tightly holding onto hers. Suddenly he heard her voice. It was filled with joy. "Big Ice Cube, are you ready?" Before Xiao could answer, he felt the small hand in his hand leave his. Then she walked behind him, brushing against his clothes. "Open sesame." With a loud chant, The brocade cloth fell down. His closed eyes slowly opened, and he saw familiar faces in front of him, surrounding him. There was a furnace in the middle, and the furnace was filled with flames, making everyone's faces look happy. His brows raised and his cold eyes revealed a rare trace of surprise. The surprise on his face was not hidden at all. Before he could ask what was going on, the people behind him had already walked to his side. With a slight raise of their hands, Xining and Jean Xian had already pushed a small table over. There was a wooden wheel under the table, and they quickly reached the center of the crowd. On the table, there was a white thing with a candle on it. The light from the candle was dazzling. This is... Xiao Su revealed a look of confusion. He only heard a delicate and gentle voice ring out beside his ear. Big Ice Cube, you forgot. Today is your birthday. With that said, the rows of Xiaolai cavalry knelt down and spoke in unison. I wish Master a long and peaceful life, and may the stars shine brightly throughout the year. The sound shook the surface of the sea and was deafening. The people on the deck, other than Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan, were either bent over or kneeling down. In the clear night, the moonlight shone down on the surface of the sea. It was peaceful. Xiao Su was startled. He had already forgotten when his birthday was. It seemed like he had not celebrated his birthday for many years. He could not remember the last birthday in his memory. It was just that he had never thought that he would welcome his 20th birthday in such a manner. Big Ice Cube, happy birthday. In the past 20 years, we were not able to participate, but in the next 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, we will be with you. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she took his hand and brought him forward to the small table. This is a wishing candle. Big Ice Cube, you can close your eyes and wish for anything. It will be very effective. She let go of his hand and looked at him with a smile. Xiao Su turned his head to look at her, and then looked at the people who had already stood up. His eyes became slightly warm and he closed his eyes. It was as if there was a heat in his chest that had nowhere to vent. It quickly spread to his limbs and warmed his entire body. Son-in-law, hurry up and make a wish. Father wants this big bun. Father Chu jumped out and pointed at the table, as if he would drool if he continued speaking. Father, this is not a big bun. It's a cake. A birthday cake. Chu Qingyan corrected him. A good name had suddenly become tacky. Father Chu chuckled. It's all food. Son-in-law, hurry up. It was clearly a very nice scene. Why did it run away when her father opened his mouth? But she was so focused on talking to her father that she did not know if Big Ice Cube had made a wish. When she turned her head, she saw that he had waved his hand and extinguished the candles on the cake. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Indeed, people who knew martial arts were different. Raising his hand was faster than blowing with his mouth. We can eat the big bun now. Father Chu cheered. Chu Qingyan could not help but laugh when she heard this. And because of this, everyone gathered around the small table, wanting to try this novel thing. The atmosphere became lively all of a sudden. Chu Qingyan looked away from the cake, and then raised her head. However, she met the warm gaze of the person in front of her. Facing the moonlight, it was like a pool of stars. Big Ice Cube, I even prepared longevity noodles for you. She knew that the ancients liked to eat noodles on their birthdays, so she had ordered the chef to make a bowl. She took the noodles from the table and turned to pass it to him. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow in front of him who was smiling sincerely with curved eyebrows and eyes. His heart seemed to have been hit by something. His life had always been like this. It was dull and tasteless, and there had never been any accidents. But ever since he met her, there were accidents everywhere. Chapter 376. Seeing that Big Ice Cube didn't react, Chu Qingyan hesitated for a moment. Finally, she smiled and picked up her chopsticks. She picked up a noodle and brought it in front of him. She said cheerfully, Big Ice Cube, you're not allowed to break it. This means longevity. Looking at the noodle in front of him, he subconsciously opened his mouth, and the warm noodle entered his mouth. When he came back to his senses, he met her sparkling and crafty eyes. You're not allowed to break it. It has to last for a long, long time. Chu Qingyan immediately shouted when she saw that he didn't move. Xiao Su laughed. When the noodle was finished, Chu Qingyan put down her sore hands. Sigh, although she was now much taller than her peers, standing in front of him, she was still very small. This situation had to be changed, she silently said in her heart. But many years later, when she grew taller, she wanted to cry but had no tears. Why was she taller than the average girl? She surpassed countless men. But fortunately, when she stood in front of Big Ice Cube, she just happened to reach his shoulder. She could lean her head on his shoulder. This height difference was just right. Everyone who was eating the cake was dumbstruck when they saw this scene. This was the first time they saw their master being fed by someone. And so cooperative. Their knowledge was refreshed. Also, master, can you not smile so gently? Your subordinates can't take it. Xiao Su seemed to feel his subordinates' fervent gazes. He lowered his head and coughed lightly. Why do you suddenly want to celebrate this prince's birthday? Chu Qingyan clasped her hands in front of her. When she heard his question, a bright smile flashed through her eyes. It's not sudden. It's been planned for a long time. He raised his brows. The person in front of him was smiling slyly like a little fox. He couldn't help but smile as well. Oh, when I left Sichuan, I knew your birthday. I calculated that I should have arrived in Jiang Kingdom by then, but I didn't expect to be detained in Junlan. I thought that I would celebrate your birthday in Junlan, but I didn't expect to be detained in this sea area. Chu Qingyan exhaled and turned to face the sea with a smile. Although the world is unpredictable, fortunately, I can still help you celebrate your birthday. The world is vast, the water meets the sky, the night pearl, and the big ice block. Do you like it? Hearing her words, he couldn't help but shift his gaze to the surface of the sea. The ripples were like the lake in his heart. He didn't answer her directly, but raised his hand to stroke her long hair. At this moment, his state of mind was calm and at ease. Not hearing his answer, Chu Qingyan was not disappointed because she knew him well. He was not a person who would show his emotions on his face. Big ice block, if you think that's all for today's birthday, then you're wrong. The best part is yet to come. Chu Qingyan suddenly spoke and clapped her hands lightly. The people who were still gathered immediately dispersed and stood behind the tables and chairs. The deck in the middle was empty. Xiao Su turned to look at the crowd and saw that there were long tables in front of them. There were all kinds of delicacies on the tables. It was obvious that these things had been prepared. Otherwise, how could there be such ingredients in this vast sea? It was just as she said. They had been planning this for a long time. Big ice block, there's a program coming up. She pulled him to the seat in the middle and said with a smile. Xiao Su didn't ask her what the program was, because with her personality, she wouldn't tell him. Once he sat down, the crowd dared to sit down. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands. Jin Xian and Hualing moved a table and chairs to the deck. Then they saw Cheng Yanluo walk to a chair with a guqin and sit down. Cheng Yanluo put down the guqin and adjusted the strings. Then she raised her head and nodded at Chu Qingyan. When Chu Qingyan saw that everything was ready, she turned to look at Xiao Su. Her gaze swept over the crowd, and she said with a smile, "How can we let down such a beautiful occasion? Qingyan is not talented, but I'm willing to liven things up with a sword dance." As soon as she finished speaking, not only Xiao Su, but everyone else revealed a surprised expression. When did this little girl learn how to wield a sword? Xiao Su watched as she took the long sword from the servant's hand. Her movements were practiced, and it didn't seem like she was a beginner. Although Turin had instructed her for a period of time before, based on her personality, she should have forgotten long ago. He didn't expect to see her wield a sword again today. No, when they were in the princess residence. She also brought a sword to the courtyard to save him. Xiao Su suddenly felt that he might have missed something during this period of time. Just as he was deep in thought, the sound of the guqin rang out and interrupted his thoughts. The person standing upright with the sword in her hand stepped to the beat and waved the sword in her hand. At this moment, Xiao Su noticed that her clothes today were different from usual. She wore a tight-fitting white tunic with a bright red coat draped over it. A black woven belt was fastened around her waist, with tassels hanging down and swaying with her movements. Her long hair was tied up high and pinned with a wooden hairpin. Her figure was slender, and her movements were nimble. Her face exuded confidence and seriousness. Inverted scallion, Kai Kai's dance is good, right? Father Chu came over with a chicken leg in his mouth, looking proud of himself. Xiao Su fixed his gaze on her body. She twisted and turned, rose and fell, flew high in the air, spread her wings and soared high. Every movement was just right, and combined with the grace of a dance. Her slender wrist softened the fierceness of her sword moves, and the sword in her hand shone like white silk in the dark night. Her sword moves and dance steps were seamlessly integrated. It was obvious that it would take at least half a month for her to reach such a level of beauty. Although his son-in-law didn't answer, the concentration on his face couldn't lie. Father Chu took another bite of his chicken leg and said, "Son-in-law, Kai Kai has been preparing for your birthday for a long time. I can see that she has put a lot of effort into you. You can't let her down in the future." Xiao Su frowned slightly. "I won't. As long as he was around, she would be safe under his wings and live the life she wanted." The sound of the guqin was sometimes slow and sometimes fast. Chu Qingyan's movements also changed according to the rhythm. She was fully focused on every move, and every step was light and steady. Cheng Yanluo looked at the person on the deck and smiled. Although she was still young, she had the potential to bring disaster to the country when she grew up. She was suddenly curious. 5 years later, when the little girl came of age, how magnificent would she be? She couldn't wait to see it. Cheng Yanluo hadn't stopped smiling when she met the gaze of the person opposite her. He seemed to be reminiscing about something. She looked away, but her fingers didn't stop playing the strings of the guqin. However, the smile on her face had disappeared. She remembered how the two of them used to play the guqin together, thinking that one day they would be able to harmonize. Unfortunately, life was unpredictable, and life was unpredictable. The song ended. The dance ended. Chu Qingyan looked up at the person in front of her. She didn't bother to wipe the sweat off her forehead. She put away her sword and bowed. She stood tall and straight, and her voice was playful and cute. "Big Ice Cube, I wish you every day of your life." This person's words were like a stone thrown into the lake of his heart. Chapter 377. Every year this day. Every year this day? Xiao Su was in a bit of a daze. It seemed like these 20 years had just started from this moment. But when he thought of this trip, the trembling in his heart disappeared. If the snake's kiss poison could not be cured, then the beginning would be the end. But this was also good. It was better than ending before it even started. After Chu Qingyan's sword dance ended, the atmosphere reached a climax. "Young Princess Consort, when did you secretly practice swordsmanship behind our backs? How come this subordinate didn't know?" Mu Ling held a wine cup with a relaxed expression as she teased her. "Behind your back, of course it's to not let you know." Chu Qingyan replied confidently. She handed the sword to Jean Xian and clapped her hands as she walked to the table. Hua Ling and Turin smiled on the side without saying a word. Seeing them like this, Kong Ling understood. "I say, did the two of you already know about this?" Hua Ling crossed her arms and leaned against the railing. She held a whip in her hand and tapped it against her palm. She smiled when she heard this. "We are in charge of patrolling. How could we not know when a living person is practicing martial arts right under our noses?" Then again, young Princess Consort's martial arts were taught by Turin. Everyone revealed an expression of understanding. Young Princess Consort is naturally intelligent. This subordinate did not give her any pointers and relied on her own efforts. Turin said to his master. Actually, to be honest, he did not spend much time teaching her. He was busy with work, and it was always him demonstrating and young Princess Consort learning. He did not think young Princess Consort would persist or have any accomplishments, but seeing her today, it was beyond his expectations. Because young Princess Consort's sword dance was integrated with the 2 sets of swordsmanship he had taught her before. There were basically no patterns in the moves, and they were clean killing moves. But when she linked them together, they became moves that were soft but firm. The killing intent did not decrease, and there was more of a woman's gentleness. He had to admit that young Princess Consort had a talent for martial arts. Turin was used to being realistic, and his words were always straightforward. But hearing him affirm her, Chu Qingyan was still a bit surprised, But more than that, she was happy. As for Xiao Su, he felt more gratified. Big Ice Cube, I didn't embarrass you. She gathered her coat and sat down beside him, looking at him expectantly. In fact, no one's affirmation could compare to what she wanted to hear from the person she wanted to hear the most. For so many days, she had endured the cold wind and gritted her teeth to practice martial arts. Other than wanting to prove that she could really do it, she also wanted to tell him that she was not a sparrow. She was also a young eagle, an eagle that could spread its wings and soar high. These past few days, you've been hiding it from this prince because you've been practicing martial arts? Xiao Su looked at her slightly flushed cheeks from practicing the sword, and asked in an ambiguous manner. Chu Qingyan nodded, but then shook her head. I always practice martial arts in the morning. When you woke up and I hid it from you, I was preparing the cake and sword dance. You were actually lying when you sparred with Miss Chung? Xiao Su remembered how serious she looked when she was lying. It could be said that he had almost been fooled by her. She rubbed her nose and smiled. If I didn't lie to you, there wouldn't be a surprise. When I touched the zither, you were the one who taught me. At that time, didn't my clothes smell burnt? That was because I didn't control the heat properly and burned the cake. Seeing her stick out her tongue in embarrassment, Xiao Su could imagine her being busy in the kitchen. For his birthday, she worked hard in a place he couldn't see, just to give him an unforgettable birthday. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved. Your merits offset your demerits, so this king won't pursue the matter of you lying. Xiao Su looked at her small face. His voice was calm, but there was a soft light in his eyes. Chu Qingyan was stunned. That's not right. According to the script, the Big Ice Cube should be very happy and feel that she did a good job. He should be very moved. But why did it become her merits offsetting her demerits? This scene was clearly not right. But when she thought about it, with the Big Ice Cube's personality, would he be happy? Moved? That's impossible. Big Ice Cube, there's still hard work. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but pout. The little fellow's little face fell. Xiao Su curved his lips. It's already offset. So petty. But she didn't think about why she did so much. At most, she just wanted to make the Big Ice Cube happy. He had never had a smooth sailing life. He had achieved success and fame, but now he had to hide from place to place. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. When she thought of this, Chu Qingyan smiled again. She reached out to pour him a cup of tea. Big Ice Cube, although you can't drink it this time, drinking tea is not bad. This is authentic Longjing tea. I bought it in Junlan town. I was in a rush that day, otherwise I would have bought more. The tea filled the teacup, and the aroma instantly filled the air. In the air, a faint mist filled the air. Through the fragrant mist, Xiao Su looked at the person who was seriously pouring tea for him with lowered eyes. It seemed that the little fellow had grown up a lot. Along the way, she was constantly growing. He didn't notice it when they were together every day, but when he looked carefully, he could see it. Everyone must not have enjoyed the little princess sword dance. Come, Hualing will also show everyone a whip dance. At this time, Hualing walked onto the open space with a whip. He was in high spirits. He drank a bit of wine and his face was a bit red, but it made him look even more handsome. As soon as his voice fell, the whip came out. It was like a snake nimbly changing its shape. Chu Qingyan sighed in surprise. I always thought that Hualing was best at using the sword, but I never thought that he would be so good at using the whip. Xiao Su followed her gaze and looked at the person wantonly dancing in the air. Then he looked at the good men who were sitting, leaning, or clapping their hands. His eyes were a bit complicated. For so many years, they had followed him everywhere and fought without rest. Every day, their strings were stretched taut. Now at this time, they were living a bit like him. The whip is not good for close combat. Hualing only uses it as a pastime. At this time, Ethereal interjected. He held a wine jug in his hand and shook it before drinking. He was a bit different from the elegant young master she first met. He was more carefree and unrestrained. Actually, Ethereal is not only good at medicine, he's also very good at playing the flute. It's just that I haven't heard him play for many years. At this time, Mu Ling irresponsibly revealed. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She immediately turned to ask Ethereal, "Really? Do you want to play a song?" She hadn't forgotten the song Ethereal played with the bamboo leaves that night. Although it was sad, it was very moving. When Ethereal heard this, he subconsciously glanced at Cheng Yanluo, who was drinking soup not far away. He was a bit hesitant. Chu Qingyan didn't miss his glance. She rolled her eyes and immediately waved at Ethereal. "Sister Yanluo, would you do me the honor of playing a song with Ethereal's zither and flute?" Chapter 378. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd fell silent. Then deafening cheers erupted. "Ethereal, Miss Chung, give us a performance. Give us a performance. Give us a performance. 1 2 quick quick. 1 2 3 quick quick quick. 1 2 3 4 5 we've been waiting so long. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 we've been waiting so long. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 how much longer do we have to wait?" Chu Qingyan sang along to the beat, chanting the same slogan they used during their military training. The cavalrymen found it amusing and joined in the chanting. Cheng Yanluo had wanted to ignore them, but she hadn't expected such a commotion. Although she was reluctant, she couldn't back down. "All right," she agreed helplessly and stood up with the zither in her arms. Ethereal's heart skipped a beat. He thought she would reject him. After all, he had drawn a clear line between them. Cheng Yanluo put down the zither and looked up at him. Her expression was cold, without the kindness in her eyes. She asked, "Which song do you want to play?" Ethereal snapped out of his daze. He felt a stabbing pain in his heart when he saw her treating him like a stranger. He frowned and walked to the empty space. He didn't make a decision immediately but said, "You pick the tune. I'll follow along." Hearing that, Cheng Yanluo snorted coldly in her heart. Did he think that he knew every single one of her songs? Would anyone change over the past 6 years? Only a fool would remain the same. However, she had to consider the occasion. After all, it was Xiaosu's birthday. It wouldn't be appropriate if she messed it up. Otherwise, she really wanted to play Breaking Up With You. Cheng Yanluo nodded. She raised her hand and plucked the strings of the zither. A crisp and beautiful melody flowed out from the strings. Ethereal wasn't surprised. This was the song she played, Life's Bliss. The jade flute was already at his fingertips. After recognizing her song, Ethereal brought the jade flute close to his lips and began to play. The combination of the zither and flute, one in green, one in white, one in bright, one in elegant, one sitting, one standing, they became a beautiful sight on the vast sea. A perfect match. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but exclaim softly. When these words reached the two people's ears, one was startled, and the other was helpless. The sound of the zither and the flute was her most beautiful memory in those 4 years. Now it had become the most laughable mockery. Let everything go with the wind. It's fine as long as you have a peaceful and happy life. You don't have to force anything else. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but drool as she said, "I feel that women who can play the guqin are all very powerful. If you study hard, it's not impossible." Hearing her muttering to herself, Xiaosu hesitated in his heart, but still spoke up to encourage her. Although it was said that the rod produced a filial son, occasionally he could not be too strict. Encouraging her more would be beneficial to her growth. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly had the urge to cry. She raised her hand and looked at her fingertips. If she continued to practice, her fingers would be crippled. "My hand can hold the sword. As for the zither and painting, let's forget about it, all right?" Chu Qingyan discussed with him. Xiaosu shook his head and said without any room for discussion, "This prince has already given the zither away, so there's no reason to take it back. You should study hard. It's not a loss to have an extra skill." Hearing this, a few drops of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. Chu Qingyan persisted. "Then what if I take good care of the zither?" "No, you have to make the best use of it." Xiaosu rubbed his chin after saying this. After thinking for a while he said, "After your reminder, this prince feels that since you're talented and not bad at martial arts, then you should be good in other aspects as well. Why don't you learn the zither, chess, calligraphy and painting?" Cold sweat poured down. This was the rhythm of wanting her life. Can you give me a discount? What do you think? I don't think so. Chu Qingyan answered her own question. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Xiao Su felt that during this period of time, seeing the little rascal's deflated face, his mood was inexplicably good. After the zither and flute were played together, the others were eager to try. Some were playing drunken boxing, while others were fighting. The scene was very lively. Today, she had been busy setting up the entire birthday banquet and controlling the backstage. She had also performed the sword dance, so she had used up too much energy. Now that her stomach was empty, she ate a few mouthfuls of rice. Looking at the braised crabs and spicy sesame prawns on the table, she was about to drool. It was a pity that peeling the shells was too troublesome, so she could only eat until she was full. Just as she was engrossed in eating, a peeled prawn landed in her bowl. That intact prawn meat was sparkling and delicious. She could tell that the person who peeled the shell had nimble fingers. She glared at the prawn, then raised her head to look at the person sitting at the side. She saw him slowly twist the prawn's head, remove the prawn's legs, and with a flip of his fingers, the shell was no longer changed. Another intact prawn meat landed in her bowl. After peeling several prawns in a row, Xiao Su took a cloth from the side and wiped the oil and debris on his fingers. Looking up, he saw that she was still staring at him in a daze. Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. If you don't eat it, it will get cold. Chu Qingyan came back to her senses and immediately picked up the prawn meat and stuffed it into her mouth. At this moment, she was shocked. With the big ice cube's mysophobia, he basically didn't touch prawns or crabs. But in this sea, the most common ingredients were prawns and crabs. The last time she saw him, he basically didn't touch them. When she asked him, he said that it was troublesome. But now, because of her gaze, he personally peeled them for her. She was simply too touched. She bit into the prawn meat and looked at the person peeling the crab meat for her. She felt that there was nothing more delicious in her mouth. After a long time, when he was used to doing these things and she was also used to enjoying it, she curiously asked about the first time he peeled the shell. Was it because you were moved by me at that time? Admit it honestly. You're thinking too much. It's just that you were too drooling when you looked at those dishes. This prince couldn't stand it. She pursed her lips. So stubborn. Halfway through the banquet, Chu Yunxing's father suddenly appeared. Chu Qingyan saw her father standing in the middle of the boat while she was eating. She suddenly had a bad feeling. What was her father doing? Performing a show? More importantly, would he know how to do it? The moment Chu Yunxing's father went on stage, he immediately erupted in applause. Although the fire spirit, Turin, and the wood spirit, Ethereal, were usually bullied by him, they weren't stingy with their applause at this time. Cuckoo, quiet. Chu Yunxing's father raised his hand in a dignified manner, indicating for everyone to quiet down. Chu Qingyan felt that her father was quite cool like this. Although she was a bit worried that he would make a mistake again, she couldn't help staring at him on stage. Today, I'll perform a show for you. You definitely haven't seen this show before, Chu Yunxing's father said with a serious expression. What show? Stop keeping us in suspense, Hualing shouted. Chu Yunxing's father seriously looked at Hualing. Be serious, this is a serious show. Hualing immediately raised his hands in surrender. All right, please continue. The show I'm going to perform is... Chu Yunxing's father said this before laughing. It's magic. Chapter 379. Everyone was stunned by Mr. Chu's words. Magic? What the hell was that? Playing a musical instrument? Or practicing swordsmanship? Chu Qingyan was probably the only one who understood what he was saying. She covered her eyes. Oh my God, Dad, don't tell me you're... Then. Alright, I'm going to perform a magic trick now. It's called Great Transformation, Mr. Chu said mysteriously. Chu Qingyan sighed. Just as she thought. What's Great Transformation? Mu Ling's curiosity was piqued. Mr. Chu explained. It's making a person disappear. Mr. Chu raised his hand. I'm going to start now. Am I standing here perfectly fine? I'm going to disappear in a while. But before I start, you have to close your eyes and keep silent for 10 seconds. Then open your eyes again. You can't see me when you open your eyes. Then, close your eyes for another 10 seconds and I'll appear. Everyone was excited to watch the show, but after hearing Mr. Chu's explanation, they all felt uncomfortable. Are you sure this isn't hide and seek but a magic trick? However, no one said anything because Chu Machen's father had already begun to urge everyone. Chu Qingyan watched as everyone closed their eyes. Then, her father flew around like a fly and hid under a small table covered with a tablecloth. Then, everyone cooperated and opened their eyes. Ah, he's gone. How magical. Quick, quick, quick. Close your eyes and see if old Master Chu will appear. Chu Qingyan facepalmed. These people were too cooperative with her father's nonsense. She was speechless. Waha, I'm out. Isn't it awesome? Mr. Chu stood proudly in front of everyone. As soon as he finished speaking, thunderous applause rang out. Your father is very good. Xiao Su picked up his teacup and looked at the people on the stage through the smoke. Chu Qingyan thought that Big Ice Cube would complain that her father was messing around. She didn't expect to hear such an evaluation from him. Warmth filled her heart. She turned to look at her father on the stage. His proud look was really cute. In her eyes, no matter what her father became, he would always be her closest family. There was nothing in this world that was stronger than blood ties. Kai, come, let's put on another show. Chu Qian's father was in high spirits and immediately pulled his daughter into the act. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised when her name was called. She stood up blankly and asked, Dad, what are you going to perform? Sing. Mr. Chu said matter-of-factly. Chu Qingyan slapped her forehead. Daddy was really too much tonight. However, she didn't want to spoil her father's mood. Besides, the main purpose of tonight was to be lively and happy. If she could make everyone laugh after losing face, it would be worth it. Little girl, hurry up, don't dilly-dally. Cheng Yanluo hadn't forgotten about her suggestion just now. It reminded her of her past, and she couldn't help but kick up a fuss. Go ahead. Xiao Su didn't stop her. Instead, he pushed her out. He remembered that the little girl seemed to be quite good at singing. Chu Qingyan turned around and glared at him. She looked around and saw that everyone was looking at her expectantly. She had no choice but to resign herself to fate and walk towards her father. When she reached her father, Chu Qingyan looked up and asked, Dad, what song do you want to sing? When she was in Mao Village, she was afraid that her father would run around and cause trouble for her mother. She had taught him many songs, but they were all nursery rhymes. Her father wouldn't want to sing nursery rhymes, right? She was a little embarrassed to sing nursery rhymes in front of so many people at her age. How about Ode to Joy? Mr. Chu whispered to her. Chu Qingyan felt that this was the most appropriate song among all the ones she had taught him. It was worth it to teach him so much. She nodded to show that she had no problem with it. Chu Qingyan coughed lightly. She felt pressured when she saw so many pairs of eyes staring at her. After clearing her throat, Chu Qingyan began to sing. Goddess of joy, holy and beautiful, brilliant light shines on the earth. Her light voice was like a dragonfly spreading its wings and flying with the wind. It made people see the vitality of spring and summer in this cold winter. Mr. Chu continued to sing. Our hearts are full of passion, coming to your holy temple. Your strength can make people erase all traces. Mr. Chu's voice was slightly lower, but the man's voice was full of power. It filled people with enthusiasm. When they reached this point, the two of them looked at each other and sang together. Under your radiance, people unite as brothers. Your strength can make people erase all traces. Under your radiance, people unite as brothers. The combination of soft and hard forces made people feel endless strength and firm belief. It was as if they were persistent in their hardships and believed that the light would come sooner or later. At this point, the song should have ended. However, at some point, Cheng Yanluo's zither and ethereal flute sounded. They were playing the song Ode to Joy. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Someone could really compose a song after listening to it once. Therefore, Chu Qingyan and Mr. Chu didn't stop. Instead, they continued to sing. Xiao Su held his teacup and looked at the stage. He didn't touch the tea in his cup for a long time. It was as if his whole body was frozen. This song was cheerful and light. With the accompaniment of the zither and flute, it showed the glory of the song itself. This was an inspirational song that made people not forget their thoughts. In their era, proper women and men would not sing in public. That was generally assumed to be reserved for the lowly group of people who were known as singers. But in the eyes of Xiao Laiqi, in the eyes of Xiao Su, these rules were nothing to them. They were people who had been through a lot on the battlefield. What kind of things had they not experienced? They had seen a lot, and were more open-minded than those who stuck to the rules. The rules of the world were meant to be broken. Therefore, when the young Princess Consort and Old Master Chu sang this song, they resonated in their hearts. After so many years of wandering between life and death, they had almost died many times. But if it weren't for the trust in their masters and the persistence of their beliefs, they wouldn't have come to this point. The same was true for their deceased comrades. After singing and playing twice, they stopped. The crowd clapped their hands, still wanting more. When Chengyan Luo put away her zither, she glared at the person who was putting away his jade flute. Why did he join in the accompaniment when she asked for it? Ethereal rubbed his nose. He didn't expect Xiaoyan to join in the accompaniment. It could be said that the two of them subconsciously played their instruments at the same time. Dan Yang, did your husband sing well? Mr. Chu ran to his wife as soon as he got off the stage. Chu Qingyan smiled. She could vaguely hear her mother saying, very good, very good. She couldn't help but walk to Big Ice Cube. She tilted her head and asked, Big Ice Cube, how was my singing? It was just a casual question. But her eyes met his serious and bright eyes. Her pupils shrank slightly. She was looking forward to what he would say. Chapter 380. Chu Qingyan held her breath, waiting for him to speak. Even though she knew that Big Ice Block was used to teasing her, she didn't know if he would tease her again this time. But she was still looking forward to it. You sang well. His black eyes had traces of a smile, as if he had seen through her thoughts. But this time he didn't ignore her expectations. You're good at both writing and martial arts. You've improved a lot. He couldn't always be a stick. Sometimes he had to give her some candy. And this time, she really made him look at her in a new light. Really? Chu Qingyan was surprised at first, but then she was overjoyed. It's fake. Xiao Su teased. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. She knew that he was teasing her, but she was really happy tonight because she rarely received such praise from Big Ice Block. Today is a day worth celebrating. Xining, I want to drink. Bring me a wine glass. Chu Qingyan was so happy that she forgot her status and waved her hand at Xining. Xining heard this and felt that something was wrong. She immediately looked at His Royal Highness and saw His Highness' deep eyes sweep over her. Xining couldn't help but shiver. She immediately lowered her head and ate her food. After a long time, she didn't see Xining bring a cup. Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw that she looked like she didn't understand anything. She was busy eating and didn't look at her eyes. Chu Qingyan thought for a bit, and then looked suspiciously at the person next to her. You can't drink yet, Xiao Su said in a serious tone. If you're thirsty, drink tea. How could she become an alcoholic at such a young age? Besides, drinking was bad for her body and mind. She wasn't thirsty, okay? She just wanted to drink to liven things up. Seeing that Xining immediately brought a cup of tea after Big Ice Block spoke, he couldn't help glaring at Xining. This little girl. Did she not recognize who her master was? However, since Big Ice Cube had already said so, she couldn't go against him. She could only sip her tea pitifully. However, a long time later, Chu Qingyan was extremely glad that she didn't have the chance to touch alcohol because of the ice cube. Otherwise, she would have regretted it to death. It turned out that once she finished drinking, there was a commotion on the deck. After drinking, the men became more relaxed. Moreover, men who had been through life and death situations on the battlefield did not bother about trifles. They began to sing and laugh. And at this time, Xiao Su wouldn't restrain his subordinates. After so many days, it was time for them to relax. Moreover, his subordinates all knew their limits. They knew how to control themselves, so he didn't need to worry about them. The show came to an end, but the laughter didn't stop. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Chu Qingyan remembered that she still had something important to do. Just as she was about to take out that thing from her sleeve, someone beat her to it. Son-in-law, Daddy has prepared a present for you. In a flash, her father appeared. Chu Qingyan withdrew her hand amused. She had always known that her father was worried about preparing a present for Big Ice Cube. However, when she wanted to ask him later, he always had a mysterious look on his face. He had done a very good job of keeping it a secret. Now, she was also curious about what her father had prepared for her birthday. Xiao was also a little surprised by Chu Qingyan's father's sudden appearance, not to mention the birthday present he mentioned. Chu Qingyan saw Chu Qingyan's father take out the thing he was carrying behind his back with a happy look on his face. Dang, birthday present. A snow-white piece of jade lay in Chu Qingyan's father's palm. At this time, under the light, it actually emitted a faint green light. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. She had thought that her father would bring flowers, grass, and stones because that was usually what her father did. However, when she saw that piece of white jade, Chu Qingyan's first thought was, "Daddy, where did you get this jade from?" Why hadn't she seen it before? Chu Qingyan's father looked at his daughter with an aggrieved expression. Kai, this is our Chu family's heirloom. Daddy didn't just randomly pick it up. Daddy, that's not what I meant. Chu Qingyan hurriedly waved her hands. She didn't suspect her father. At this time, Chu Qingyan's mother walked over. She smiled lovingly at Xiao and her daughter and said, "This jade pendant was given to Yuanlang by an eminent monk before he went to war 10 years ago. It was said that it could bless him with safety. It was all thanks to this jade pendant that the entire army was wiped out in that battle. However, your father managed to survive after falling off a cliff. Mother thought that it might be because of this jade pendant." At this point, Chu Qingyan's mother raised her head to look at Xiao. After spending so much time together, she had dispelled the rumors about him being full of evil. Now, she looked at him with the gaze of an elder looking at a junior and said gently, "Your Highness, now that we are giving this jade pendant to you, we hope that you will be able to survive this disaster safely. I believe that the heavens have eyes and won't let a good person suffer too many twists and turns. A woman's coming-of-age ceremony and a man's coming-of-age ceremony is an extremely solemn event. The gift is light, so I hope that your Highness won't mind." After Chu Qingyan's mother finished speaking, Chu Qingyan's father nodded repeatedly. "Bless you." Xiao looked at the two people in front of him. A warm current surged in his heart and instantly flowed through his entire body. He stretched out his hands with a solemn expression. "I don't dare to refuse an elder's gift." Xiao is not talented and has troubled the two of you. Seeing Xiao take the jade pendant so seriously and carefully, Chu Qingyan's mother glanced at her daughter and suddenly revealed a gratified smile. "Your Highness, in the future, my Kai will be in your care." Chu Qingyan was originally touched by this scene, but when her mother suddenly said this, she did not know how to react. Then she heard Big Ice Cube's reply. "Xiao will treat her well." Xiao replied seriously. Chu Qingyan's mother nodded and left with her husband, leaving the two of them some space. When Chu Qingyan's father came forward to give the birthday gift, Hualing and the others had already noticed. Then, when they heard Chu Qingyan's mother's words, they all fell silent. Chu Qingyan's father was originally a proud son of the heavens. His father's birthday should be celebrated by the royal family with the highest standards. He should receive the worship of the civil and military officials, and the blessings of the emperor. But now on this vast sea, there was no family, no title, no celebration. There was only hiding, the cold wind, and the cold moon. However, they also felt a trace of joy. At least at this time, their master had the little princess by his side, and they were accompanying him. In the past 20 years, their master had never felt the care of family. Today, at least he received the most sincere blessings. The little princess's parents would also be their master's parents in the future. At this moment, they received the warmest blessings from family. "Turin, what should I do? I'm moved." Ling rubbed the non-existent tears at the corner of his eyes, but his eyes were really red. Yeah, me too. The wood spirit smiled. At this time, we should be happy for our master. Turin listened to his companion's words, and suppressed the warmth in his chest as he smiled. At least this birthday, their master would no longer be alone. Chapter 381. Xiao looked at the jade pendant in his hand. In his position, he had seen too many rare treasures. This jade pendant could not be considered precious, and its quality was also very ordinary. But when he held it in his hand, it felt warm. He felt that he had never seen a piece of jade that suited him more than this. Chu Qingyan watched as Big Ice Cube slowly closed his fingers and held the jade pendant tightly in his hand. She could not help but smile. It looked like Big Ice Cube really liked the jade pendant that his parents gave him. Suddenly, he turned around and handed the jade pendant in his hand to her. Chu Qingyan was a bit stunned. What was Big Ice Cube doing? Tie a knot, otherwise it won't be easy to wear. He put the jade pendant in her hand and said unhurriedly. Chu Qingyan finally understood his intentions. Big Ice Cube wanted to wear it on his body, but he did not have a knot. She thought that he did not like it. All right. She nodded, but after she agreed, she realized that she did not know how to tie a knot at all. But it was fine. Xining should know how to do it. She could just have her teach her when the time came. Seeing her put away the jade pendant, Xiao spoke again. What did you want to say to this prince just now? He remembered that she seemed to have something to say to him just now. After his reminder, Chu Qingyan finally remembered this matter. She said with a smile, Big Ice Cube, I also prepared a gift for you. Is that so? Xiao smiled faintly, as a trace of anticipation flashed in his deep eyes. He did not know what kind of surprise she would give him. Wait, I'll get it for you. Chu Qingyan lowered her head, and was about to take out a small box from her sleeve. But right at this moment, fireworks were lit and rushed into the night sky from the four corners of the ship. Bang, bang, bang. The fireworks bloomed in the sky one after another. The brilliant colors bloomed like flowers, making people unable to look away. It was as bright as day in an instant. It was magnificent in an instant. Chu Qingyan took out the small box and opened it. Big Ice Cube, this is the birthday gift I made for you. Xiao's gaze did not land on the box, but on her in front of him. Behind her was a brilliant display of fireworks, and she was like a little fairy walking out from the light. Her eyebrows were curved, and the corners of her eyes contained the entire starry sky, instantly overflowing with light. Ever since then, this scene had been imprinted in his memory, and it would never fade away. What? His thoughts drifted as he subconsciously asked. She took out the item from the box. It was a small booklet about the size of a palm. She smiled and handed the booklet to him. Take a look. Hurry up. Hearing her urging, Xiao took the booklet and saw two charmingly naive little people on the cover. One was standing in the wind with his hands behind his back, looking a little stern. The other was lying on the ground and seemed to be rolling around. The style of the painting was very exaggerated, unlike their ink and wash paintings. But for some reason, he had a strange feeling that the one standing was him, and the one rolling on the ground was very much like the little guy. At least, the way they were making a scene was very similar to the little guy. Under the little fellow's signal, he opened the first page. It was the daily life of the two little people. When he flipped it open again, it was also their daily life. Suddenly his fingers paused. All the conversations and scenes inside seemed to be vivid in his mind. Seeing that Big Ice Cube had already discovered her, Chu Qingyan giggled and said, "This is a comic. I have drawn some of the interesting things in our lives using a humorous style. If you are bored, you can flip it open and take a look." She had accidentally joined a comic club in university and learned some basic drawing skills. She thought that it was just for fun, but she did not expect that it would come in handy here. By the way, if you close the booklet and flip it quickly, there will be a surprise. Although Xiao wasn't very interested in these kinds of small things, he still became interested when he heard her say that. He casually flipped through them, and the paintings that were still fixed suddenly came to life. The little person who looked exactly like her in the footer came alive, as if she was walking slowly with a plate of peaches, and there were small words jumping next to it. Big Ice Cube, happy 20th birthday. Every birthday in the future you must be very happy. When he turned to the last page, the picture also disappeared. How is it? Very good, right? This can also be called an animation. Chu Qingyan proudly showed off, immersed in her own joy, and did not notice the shocked eyes of the person beside her. I like it very much. As soon as the words came out, fireworks bloomed and drowned in an instant. What did you say? Chu Qingyan did not hear clearly, and asked with her head tilted. Xiao slanted his lips. I won't say it twice. Stingy. Chu Qingyan grumbled, and then smiled again. Xiao looked at her delicate face and could not help but smile with her. Big Ice Cube, if you are unhappy in the future, you can take it out and look at it. Even if it doesn't look good, you are not allowed to dislike it. I stayed up a few nights to rush it out, in order to cherish the fruits of my labor. You are not allowed to spoil it or lose it. Hearing her solemn declaration, Xiao reached out and patted her head in amusement. What if I don't do it? Then I won't give you comics in the future. Chu Qingyan snorted. This punishment is a little severe. Xiao teased her. At this moment, she pulled on his sleeve and smiled pleasingly. Big Ice Cube, keep this comic well. In the future, I will give you a small booklet for your birthday every year. This is called a cereal, and I will give it to you until you are old. I hope that you can smile more in the future, and smile 10 years younger. That way, I can give it to you many times, and then I can give you a lot of happiness. When such words came out of her mouth, Xiao felt his heart soften. At this age, he should be the one to protect her, but now she was the one who kept circling around him, afraid that he would accidentally leave her. Okay. He smiled, lowered his head and promised. Receiving his response, Chu Qingyan could not help but smile, and then pulled him to the railing to enjoy the fireworks. I bought a lot of fireworks, and then let the wood spirit improve them. They can be put on for an entire night. Chu Qingyan welcomed the sea breeze happily. Xiao raised his head to look at the boundless sea. The world was vast, and his heart was peaceful. There was no killing, no scheming, no scheming. This kind of day was very precious. Big Ice Cube, you will be able to see Jiangguo's good friend tomorrow. I wonder what he looks like, and if he is easy to get along with. Chu Qingyan suddenly spoke up. You don't have to worry about that. You can ignore him. Xiao said indifferently. Chu Qingyan was stunned. For better or worse, he is your good friend. How can you treat him like this? However, seeing that his expression was normal, Chu Qingyan did not think too much of it. She leaned on his arm and enjoyed the fireworks in the sky. The two of them stood quietly for a long time. If one looked at them from behind, they would think that they were snuggling together. However, it was indeed Chu Qingyan leaning on him. Do you want to see this prince's original appearance? Xiao lowered his head, wanting to ask her, but he saw that she had fallen asleep while leaning on him. He smiled, and his gaze softened. Forget it, the future is long. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.